Chat. Listen to me now, okay? I can't believe you sold out to Phil. One person has been saying it for 3 fucking years. Day in and day out. And who do you think is the one person with the court order right now? Everybody else can wait till 1 a.m. I got that bitch. I can't believe you sold out to you know how you guys know how my Rumble channel gets mass downvoted, and I've asked people before to like thumbs it up to see if we could even. It doesn't matter if I get 100 thumbs up. It's like someone sends a bot or something to do 200 thumbs down, right? Someone tried to tell me today that that's because my huge Rumble audience doesn't like that I sold out to Phil. I wonder where they came from. Oh, yeah, the transcript's just coming out at 1. You're right. That's what's fixing to post. You're right. It'll probably be after. Oh, man, I'm way early. I'm not posting it nowhere. We got the scoop. But, well... if you talk about Nick Alvear, you sold out to Phil. Okay, I'll wait. I can't. I don't understand how people don't see that they're the same fucking people, right? Phil does live stream. Nick's make movies. They both go out to other fucking truthers, steal all their content, and wrap it up as their own, and then leave. Like, if it wasn't obvious enough, after Nick got sued by Phil, he kicked all the people out that helped him to put his movie together out of his group. I don't know what's left. Gulp. We got the court order. Now they're gonna say I sold out to Phil, so Phil sent me the court order. Wait and see. Wait and see. They'll be like, oh, the reason he got it is because he's best friends with Phil. I'll have you know my drug dealer is from Pennsylvania. There's a special place in my nose cavity for Pennsylvania. Kentuckyville. Dude, I don't think he's got 30 days to file an appeal. I don't think he has grounds for it. Like, he didn't present a case. All the things that by legal requirement he had to prove, he didn't even try. And the few times that I talked to him, just kind of like trolling him, texting him or whatever, or he texts me or something, I'd be like, man, just trying to get like a statement out of him. Like, the Scranton Times case don't look good. He would say shit like, just put me in front of a jury. I do not think that Phil believes the stuff he says. Obviously, he knows he's not Edward Snowden. He knows he wasn't recruited by the CIA. He knows all that's bullshit. But I honestly think that Phil thinks he's so good at lying to and manipulating people because the Q-tard grannies that he can get the money from, that he thinks he can do that to a judge and a jury and a lawyer and people that aren't grandmas on Social Security that support him. You know what I'm saying? And he legitimately thinks that. Here we go. Roll the intro.
Hey Daddies, it's me, the Linda Binda from TikTok. I wanted to make this video because I wanted to thank you for watching Cold Beer Confessionals with Will Bird. I think that's just incredible. I've watched a few episodes and I'm just like very intrigued. But you know what I'm most intrigued in is...
Get over here. We're talking about Phil.
Big Daddy's meat stick. I heard that it's very thick, like a good old German sausage. You know, Linda and her coochie loves that. Oh, never mind. Let's not go there. Anyways, I hope you have a good show and enjoy it as you can. There's a lot of weird things that go on, especially when it comes from the realm of Linda Bindeland. So, enjoy the show. Thanks for watching. Peace out.
It bothers me calling you Jennifer because that's my sister's name, and then that confuses me because I talk to her all the time. But Jennifer Winkler, did you have any idea that it would come down this quick? I thought that was incredibly quick. But when we read this decision, it's clear that the judge wasn't having none of this bullshit. Wasn't having none of this bullshit. Like everything, he's like, he says this, but he didn't meet this. He says this, but he didn't do that. He says this, but he didn't do. Like, it's over and over. We're going to read it tonight. We have the court order, and I'm happy to announce that the motion was granted in full with no, like, notes about it or whatever. So what was the motion? The motion was dismissal for summary judgment, or motion for summary judgment dismissal with prejudice. And at first I was confused, but I asked to clarify this. I figured since their motion said they wanted it with prejudice, that if it was granted in full, not in part, in full, that means it's with prejudice. But I wasn't sure because when you read the actual order, it doesn't say anything about with prejudice. There's not the word prejudice in it anywhere. But I was able to confirm that the motion they filed, if it wouldn't have been without prejudice, like because there would have been like a procedural issue or something that he could have come back on, they would either have to refile their motion, or it would have said is granted in part, and the part that's not granted or denied would be with prejudice. So because it just says defendant's motion for summary judgment is granted, and the clerk is to record the judgment in favor of the Scranton Times, that means that they got with prejudice. Now, that doesn't mean this is the end of it. I personally think this is the end of it. The problem is that he has 30... Well, it's not a problem. This is the way the court system should work. He has 30 days to file an appeal. My personal belief is he doesn't have... I mean, he might do it just to delay this process, just to do this, just do that. But I think it's probably going to be pretty costly to go to now an appeals court and appeal this, especially if his lawyers don't believe there's a case there. They're just kind of running around doing nothing. They probably don't want to appeal it, because I've been telling you guys this whole time, Phil talks a mean game about my lawyers told me this, my lawyers told me that, my lawyers told me that we're going to win this, my lawyers told me it's a slam dunk. That was his exact words. My lawyers told me this is a slam dunk case. And we know none of that to be true, right? So I'd say it would cost him probably more money to continue doing this, but he just doesn't have grounds. The biggest issue, legal proceedings are not like TV, right? When Phil tells like a dramatic story about they had A, B, and C planned, and in between B and C, a surprise witness come through the back door and everybody gasp and, oh no, who's that? Like a soap opera. Like, it's not like that, right? When you go to court, you already know what you aim to prove and what they aim to prove. And you already have a defense for what they aim to prove, and they have a defense for what you aim to prove. And it's all laid out before you ever get in front of a judge, or else it would just be ridiculous, right? You didn't even know what to prepare for. You didn't know what was going on. You didn't know who the witnesses were. You didn't know what the evidence was. And even withholding some of that evidence gets cases thrown out all the time. That's what happened with Alec Baldwin. I know we didn't cover it, but we were talking about it today at work. Basically, Alec Baldwin was going to go down for what he was charged with. But what happened was, at some point, someone came into the police department, handed a Ziploc bag of rounds of ammunition to the police officers and said it had to do with the Alec Baldwin case. Now, the prosecutor said they believed it didn't have anything to do with the case, so they just didn't do anything with it, right? It was just some random person that brought in a baggie full of bullets. But when they had a hearing that popped up, his defense team said, well, didn't a Good Samaritan bring in some evidence? And they're like, oh, yeah, that did happen. And why didn't you submit it to us? Why wasn't it in the shared folder we had? We didn't have access to this information. It was thrown out, right? Because it's like a procedural thing. You have to have all the evidence. Everybody has equal evidence. Everybody knows the witness list. Everybody knows basically the game plan. Sometimes there can be like small surprises, but it really takes a lot to get one over on someone because you basically know their entire game plan before you even stand in front of a judge, right? And anything starts. So, Phil didn't do any of this pre-trial stuff. Phil didn't do any of this when they were like, okay, well, you have to prove actual malice. Phil didn't even try. When they're like, okay, well, you have to prove that this didn't happen. Phil didn't even try. Well, you have to prove that this happened. Phil didn't even try. He wouldn't even turn in the documents that the other side was requesting, right? Delay after delay after, and that builds up. Whether you like it or not, that builds up on a judge. Like, obviously, we're talking about a professional corporation and a professional lawyer, and then Phil's lawyer should be a professional lawyer, but then we're talking about, like, the human factor, average citizen, which is what the judge should think Phil is, like just an average citizen, right? They time and time again, they gave him a second chance. They told him to turn it in. They didn't have penalties. They didn't dismiss the case. They didn't throw it out. They didn't do this. They didn't rule in favor. And Phil still wouldn't participate in his own case because I think he knew, his legal team had to know that this was not the slam dunk he claimed it was, right? His legal team knew what was going on. His legal team knew that this was not going to be what Phil was claiming it was, right? Just get me in front of a jury. That's all I got to do is you got to get me in front of a jury. That's not how it works, dude. There's a merit to these claims that you have to prove before you'll ever see a jury. Ever. And this is two separate judges. So when we go to read this order, what you'll see is that towards the end of the case, Phil wanted a financial assessment of Chris Kelly in the Scranton Times. But the first judge said, no, I'm not going to do that because you haven't met this actual malice standard. You haven't proven actual malice, that they knew that they just did it out of like because they fucking hate you, or they knew it to be untrue, or entertained serious doubts about it being untrue. Because he didn't meet that, he couldn't get the financial statements. And that's also a big part of his case. If he didn't meet that for the financial statements, he damn sure didn't meet that for the case to proceed. So that's what we're talking about tonight. Phil Godlewski, let's check out his post. He made a post today. Let's see if we can get over there. He's been canceling shows. I think he knew. So he canceled yesterday, and there's no way he could have known that the order was coming out today. There's literally, I don't think anybody knew. And then it came out today, and suddenly, as soon as it comes out, he cancels again. Okay, here's his video. Let's start here.
What's up, guys? So sorry about the cancellations. I came down with something. I've had a fever for last couple days. Last night I felt better. I got through the night. I didn't think I had anything, but I still.
Yeah, he might need my screenshots for an update to his Phil movie.
And not good. I'm actually going to the doctor right now. I really don't think I'm going to make a live tonight. Even if I were to try to do it, I don't think I'm going to be able to last. I haven't been doing anything other than laying down for the last 72 hours. So I'm heading to the doctor now to see what the heck is going on with me. I gotta rest more, I think, before I do anything in terms of live streaming, because obviously it's not the most important thing right now. I know it's important for you guys, but if I continue to overexert myself is just going to make everything much worse. So I got all the remedies you guys have been sending me, and I've literally tried everything, and not much is working.
Yes, he's driving his hybrid Ferrari to fucking, I guess that's it, to his fucking doctor's appointment.
So I'm going to go see if there's something else wrong with me that I'm not necessarily thinking of. And I'll keep you guys posted, but it's highly unlikely that I'm going to be able to go live again tonight. There's a chance that I may if I start feeling better, but I don't go to the doctor. You guys know that about me, but getting a little bit nervous because I don't have symptoms. I have a fever, and obviously with a fever it becomes, low energy and very lethargic, and that's how I feel. But I don't have a cough. I don't have congestion. I don't have much else.
Just kind of down in the dumps. Weird.
It comes with a fever too. So I'm going to see what they say, and we'll kind of play it by ear for tonight. But I really, as of right now, I'm 80% certain that I'm not going to.
I honestly think so. He has no symptoms. He just feels like shit. He just did this update so people wouldn't yell at him. He's had to close his chat. He promised them, what did he promise them, 3 or 4 streams this week? He's done 0. So he just had to make a video so his chat wouldn't attack him.
To be able to do a show tonight. So I'll keep you posted as things develop here the rest of the day. But just want to let you guys know so you weren't waiting on me or anything like that. Love you guys.
There you go. So there's his video. Let me go back to his page. And, of course, after this post, this is what he says. I was ruled against in the Scranton Times lawsuit. We'll just clap for that for a minute. I was ruled against in the Scranton Times lawsuit for their motion of summary judgment, for summary judgment. This means that the judge, a far-left Democrat, the guy is technically a Democrat. I looked it up. But he's kind of impartial, so he isn't the same one that the judges they've been seeing already. He gets a review of the evidence and goes over and it's supposed to be impartial. He heard arguments once, I think, and that was it. That's the transcript we're waiting on to come out. But the guy was appointed and reappointed both by Republican governors. So he was appointed once for 10 years by a Republican governor and reappointed for another 10 years by a Republican governor. So I doubt he's a far-left Democrat. Dismissed the case before even allowing it to be heard by a jury. The decision now gets appealed to the Superior Court, which is exactly where I wanted it all along. So he's got this he's got this evil genius strategy. After he's been telling you it's a slam dunk, my lawyer said I can't lose. They know I'm going to win millions. That's why I don't mind paying this money. I'm going to win Williams and Williams and millions and millions. I said William. Mariah texted me and said, that's what I'm talking about, William. Millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. After he's been telling you all that, what he actually wanted was he knew. Didn't he just say that they filed a motion for summary judgment and it's going to fail like all their other motions? That's literally what he just said a while back. So here we sit. He knew that it was going to fail, just like he knew Trump was going to be assassinated. The decision now gets appealed to the Supreme Court, which is exactly where I wanted it all along. He shares a emoji with sunglasses on. Now, if we can get Pebbles, if we can get Pebbles to court, win there. If we can get Bree to court, win there. The only case from the beginning, the only case I've said he had a real chance against is Nick Alvear. And that's because Nick Alvear went above and beyond everybody else, saying that Phil would like to fuck his kids, saying that Phil doesn't have just straight out lies, like Phil doesn't have custody of his kids. Phil does have joint custody. You can't prove that a judge took custody away from Phil because he was afraid he would fuck his kids. You can't say that about someone that's fucking lawfare crazy that'll sue you. He has actual grounds for that lawsuit. Will he go through? I have no idea. He follows that up with also, and this is completely unrelated to the, I love the new ruling. That's what I wanted the whole time. But this has nothing to do with that. This has nothing to do with what I just said earlier. Also, no live tonight. I just don't have the energy. Back tomorrow, 100%. Back tomorrow, 100%. Phil, actually, you guys remember when Phil wanted you to buy his JFK movie for what, $30 or whatever the fuck it was, and you got to get it now because the price is going to go up? He slashed the price. It's actually cheaper now than it ever was. But he claims that he's still in talks with Amazon to purchase it and put it on and put it on their platform. But he told you to buy it now for this introductory price, and then after everybody bought it, he lowered the price to try to get more money. If you can't see that he's fucking lying to your face, what's next? What's left? What's he gonna do now? Jesus Christ, these fucking retards keep defending him, keep worshiping him, keep following him, keep saying he didn't do anything wrong. He didn't do anything wrong. Here we go. You wanna know what the judge said about it? Good, because I'd be happy to let you know. 53 pages of my favorite type of Phil beatdown. The order to grant summary judgment in favor of the defendants, the Scranton Times. Here we go. Philip Godlewski, plaintiff, Chris Kelly, and the Scranton Times. By the way, please consider supporting the show. The show isn't free to run. We use donations to keep it running, and we find stuff like this. So if you're interested in seeing these documents long before anybody else is going to have them, consider supporting the show at coldbeer.fund. Coldbeer.fund. That's how I pay the bills at the office, the computer and shit. I also work a job, but the show's self-funded. All right, here we go. Phil Godlewski, the plaintiff, versus Chris Kelly, the Scranton Times LP defendants. Nealon J., this is his judge. It says, a self-proclaimed patriot reporter who claims to be one of the highest anons in the QAnon movement and to earn $5 million per month. This motherfucker went into court under oath and told the judge, and his fucking lawyer and the Scranton Times lawyer, this is just his ego overriding what it would be sound judgment, common sense. If you want somebody to feel like you were defamed and harmed in some way, why would you lie about how much you make? This is just his ego. He absolutely 100% does not make $5 million per month from Rumble.
Anonymous gifted Sook_Medik_ a subscription.
Thank you for the extra sub.
Tier 1 sub to Sook_Medik_.
The top 50 streamers on Rumble, which Phil usually isn't part of, together don't make $5 million a month on Rumble. He went in and testified that he makes $5 million per month on Rumble. You can't make this shit up. I mean, Phil can, but you can't make up that someone would go do this. From his QAnon broadcasts on social media, has instituted this litigation, advancing claims for defamation and false light invasion of privacy against a newspaper and its op-ed columnist, opinion piece, columnist based upon an article that they published on February 14th, 2021. Valentine's Day of 2021 is when it came out. The ironic gist of the opinion column at issue was that the QAnon broadcaster, who affirmatively states in his published videos on social media that certain high-ranking elected and public officials are satanic, cannibalistic pedophiles, sexually abusing children, and drinking their blood to ingest the life-extending chemical adrenochrome, previously pled guilty in this county to corruption of a minor resulting from a sexual relationship with a 15-year-old girl while he was a 27-year-old baseball coach at her school. Upon the completion of discovery, that's probably a typo. Upon the completion of discovery, the columnist and newspaper filed the instant motion for summary judgment on the ground that the broadcaster has failed to adduce sufficient evidence to satisfy his burdens of proof governing his defamation and false light claims. Since the broadcaster is admittedly a public figure, he must establish that the op-ed columnist and newspaper published a false and defamatory statement concerning him, and that they did so with Say it with me, chat. Actual malice. This has been his biggest hurdle so far. And he's so fucking dumb. He came out and he should have argued that he's not a public figure. He might have lost that argument, but it's a lower burden of proof. He should have at least tried it, but he's like, oh no, I'm a public figure. I got millions of people that follow me. God, he's dumb. In that they either knew that the factual statement was false, or, so he had to prove either they knew that it was false, or they acted with reckless disregard to its truth or falsity because they had a high degree of awareness that it was probably false, or entertained serious doubts to it being true. So the two things he had to prove to proceed with this on everything he charged them with was that they knew it was false and ran it anyways, or that they said, I don't care what's true. I know it might be false, but I'm going with it anyways. And he didn't even try to prove these things. They tried to get Larry Holeva, who was originally in the suit then released, they tried to get him to basically say that Chris Kelly, I didn't mention a lot of this, but you guys remember when Larry Holeva was dropped from the case? To me, and I could be wrong, to me what it seems like is they tried to get Larry Holeva to say that Chris Kelly didn't go through due diligence. But even when Larry Holeva, it seemed to me, was talking about Chris Kelly and maybe not the most positive light, it still seemed like he's like, oh yeah, that was the steps he went through. He talked to this person. He reviewed the archives. He spoke to his editor. He did this. He did that. And they dropped him from the case. But even the Larry Holeva testimony, the judge says in here, was so redacted, he couldn't even make heads or tails of it. Even when the summary judgment record is evaluated in a light most favorable to Phil, because he's the non-moving party, okay? The moving party, the person who files for summary judgment, because they're the moving party. It doesn't matter if they're the defendant or whatever. They're the moving party. They have the burden of proof, and you're supposed to give a more favorable light on the facts towards the non-moving party, okay? Even when the summary judgment record is evaluated in a light most favorable to Phil, it lacks sufficient evidence that the columnist and newspaper published a false and defamatory statement about the broadcaster with actual malice. Furthermore, inasmuch as the broadcaster's claim for false light invasion of privacy similarly requires actual knowledge of or subjective reckless disregard for the falsity of the publication, the Phil's submitted evidence likewise is insufficient as a matter of law to sustain his false light invasion of privacy claim. Accordingly, for the reasons discussed in greater detail below, the motion for summary judgment filed by the columnist, Chris Kelly, and the newspaper, Scranton Times, will be granted. So the very first paragraph tells us, or the second paragraph, I guess, tells us that here we are. Phil didn't meet the grounds. It's going to be granted, but here's why. Now we go through the factual background. These are things that we can all agree are fact, or should all agree. Phil's lawyers or the Scranton Times lawyers may dispute some of these, but the judge is saying, look at when I'm looking at the whole case, these are what the things I think are undisputed facts. Plaintiff Phil Godlewski has commenced this action against defendants Chris Kelly, the Scranton Times LP, asserting claims for defamation and false light invasion of privacy. He avers that Kelly is a, quote, journalist employed by the Scranton Times who authored a, quote, false, defamatory, and malicious article about him that was published in the Scranton Times on February 14, 2021. The article in question appeared under the heading QAnon Realtor Sells Rabbit Holes on YouTube and in its entirety read. Then we have the whole article, which I'm going to read very quickly and try not to get sidebarred. One of QAnon's movement's most devoted dead enders is a Clark Summit-based realtor who insists Donald Trump is still president and working behind the scenes to depose Joe Biden, impose martial law, and bring final justice to elected Democrats and other satanic child sex traffickers who unwind after a long day of evildoing with a glass of baby blood. Over the past year or so, many readers have alerted me to the online proselytization of Phil Godlewski, who lives in Doria, but sells homes under the name of a national real estate franchise. He sells QAnon sense to thousands of followers around the globe on a host of platforms, including a YouTube channel with more than 26,000 subscribers. I've reported on a few local manifestations of QAnon sense, but avoided Godlewski because I don't want to give unwarranted attention to a purveyor of poison that has curdled the hearts and minds of millions who may never recover. Watching the second impeachment trial of Donald Trump changed my mind. There were many Q followers in the mob of domestic terrorists who ransacked the Capitol on Jan 6. They came from cities, towns, and neighborhoods across the country. They are our neighbors, friends, and family. They are Americans. The new video of the seditionist mayhem that resulted in 5 deaths and the airtight case made by the House managers convinced me we can't afford to ignore citizens of a separate reality who act, organize, and seek to undermine and upend objective reality. The Capitol riot is empirical evidence that we ignore the insidious war on truth at our peril. So it puts us in danger to ignore it. Despite the demolition of the so-called prophecies, the Q movement marches on. Phil Godlewski happily calls out the cadence. In a text message, Godlewski told me he wasn't at the Capitol on Jan 6, but he showed up in USA Today's coverage of the riot. Shortly after the mob stormed the People's House, Godlewski posted on Facebook that Vice President Mike Pence had been arrested. It was a lie. Godlewski didn't return the newspaper's request for comment. He has since been banned from Facebook and Twitter, but somehow is still welcome on Instagram and YouTube. A reader sent me a link to one of his latest YouTube offerings. Quote, I want someone to answer for me one question logically, Godlewski said to his audience. I want a really good explanation. Why would Trump walk away? Why would Donald Trump walk away? He knows there's election fraud. He has the proof. He has them nailed to the wall, and there's no doubt about that. The self-proclaimed Patriot reporter went on to cite widely debunked claptrap as proof the election was stolen, and argued that Trump's failure to use the Insurrection Act and a host of other powers the presidency does not grant to stay in power is actually part of the grand hidden strategy we mere mortals can't begin to comprehend. This is the paradox of every crackpot conspiracy theory. When nothing makes sense, it's because you don't know everything. Yet, keep believing and all will be revealed. The Great Awakening is always just a little further down the rabbit hole. There is no room for doubt in the QAnon cult. Adherents believe that Q is a mysterious individual or group of them with a high-level security clearance. Q is privy to a plan by Trump to round up and execute the satanic vampire pedophiles in a sweeping cataclysm called the Storm, which will lead to a Great Awakening. Ashley Babbitt, the Air Force veteran tragically shot and killed by a Capitol police officer as she climbed through a smashed window, believes she was participating in the storm. Her belief killed her, just as sure as the bullet that brought her down. I wanted to answer the question Godlewski posed in his video, so I reached out and proposed an interview. He declined. I suggested he record our discussion, as Andrew Torba, CEO of the Clark Summit-based right-wing anti-social media platform Gab, did a few weeks ago. No go. Quote, all the things I will say would be dissected into oblivion, and only the crazy-sounding things will make it to the article, Godlewski texted. It'll ultimately be painted to make me look insane, and my family will ultimately suffer in the future. I can't take that chance. I texted back in what soon became a sporadic exchange of messages that amounted to an interview. I've been watching your videos, and I have to ask, do you really believe the things you say, or are you just saying it for attention? If the former, why not defend your beliefs for the record? If the latter, why pass an opportunity to showcase yourself? So he's basically giving him two options and saying, if either one of these are true, you should still do the interview. Right? If you actually believe it, defend your beliefs. If you want attention, this is attention. Godlewski's response, I couldn't care less about attention. The reporting I do is because the average American citizen can no longer get true information from the mainstream media. Between all platforms, I have over 75,000 followers that are depending on me for information that they can no longer get from the regular sources. I'm not the only citizen reporter. There are dozens of people like me, if not hundreds. If I wanted to showcase myself, in your words, not mine, I would have jumped to the opportunity to do your interview. It's not about that. It's about the truth. Again, Chris, no disrespect to you, but I know you're following the agenda. The theme for your article is already set for you. You can't go against the mainstream media narrative with your reporting because you'll either, one, get fired, or two, lose credibility with what the Tribune you think is their primary audience. Little do you know, your primary focus on subscribers should be people like me who seek the truth and no longer listen to the garbage mainstream media narrative. The focus shouldn't be on the ones the Tribune wants your article to appeal to. I understand that's not your choice, but that's the reason I cannot do the interview. Your narrative is already set. This is the epitome of self-fulfilling prophecy. Godlewski refuses to engage me as an admitted critic, ensuring that my report will be one-sided. He is automatically the martyr. I am the witless tool of the deep state, or worse, a willing agent of oppression. Here's proof. In the normal course of reporting this column, I stumbled upon some legal troubles in Godlewski's recent past. In 2011, the former Riverside High School baseball coach pled guilty to corruption of minors and admitted to having a sexual relationship with a 15-year-old girl. Lackawanna County detective said Godlewski had sex with the girl in cars and homes he had access to as a real estate agent. Godlewski, 28 at the time, was sentenced to 3 to 23 months, with the first 3 months to be served under house arrest and the balance as probation. Last February, Godlewski was charged with theft by deception, forgery, and related charges. Police said Godlewski coded a check to an area building supplier and forged bank statements to cover it up. We learned more about that case, too. The case is still pending. I texted Godlewski and told him I would likely report both cases in the column. I didn't want him to be blindsided. I want you to know this is what I'm reporting on. Godlewski, his response was, that shows your character as a journalist, Chris. You just lost all respect and credibility with me. In fact, my editor and I discussed whether to include the information, which is public and was previously published in the Times Tribune. We decided it was relevant in regard to Godlewski's credibility. I have my character defects, but the last time I had sex with a 15-year-old was never. Never. And I've also never said, have you seen 15-year-olds nowadays? Or even back then? Throughout the reporting of this column, I texted Godlewski to give him an opportunity to respond. Eventually, he asked me to stop. Quote, please stop messaging me. Bringing up my past only serves you and your company. It will cause turmoil for my young children and family. I don't want to hear from you again. Go continue your self-serving narrative. Karma always has a way when it comes to people that do that kind of stuff to me. Karma is easy to see when it affects others, not so much when it's working on you. I am telling the truth in a local newspaper. Godlewski is spreading lies across the planet. Whether he's a true believer or a cynical opportunist, the second, opportunist, the damage is the same. If Godlewski had agreed, he doesn't, just because he doesn't actually believe the shit that he's spreading about him being a CIA in high school and all that shit, doesn't take any of the blame away. It's still the same amount of fucking guilt that is on him, on his shoulders, right? If Godlewski had agreed to speak with me, I would have answered his question logically. Trump walked away because he lost the election, and his shameless, treasonous, and ultimately lethal attempt to overturn it failed. Democracy defeated Trump on November 3rd and again on January 6th and January 20th. Trump never presented a shred of evidence, which seems like this not submitting any evidence seems like a pattern with these people, including Phil. Trump never presented a shred of evidence of his mass voter fraud because there is none. If he had any legitimate proof, his lawyers would present it in a court of law. The idea that Trump would holster any smoking gun that bolstered his selfish claim is beyond ridiculous. Trump didn't testify at either impeachment trial for the same reason. Godlewski refused to speak with me. Trump and Godlewski don't dare leave their safe spaces where truth is fluid and lies flow with no resistance for fear of having to defend the indefensible. Subjecting themselves to even the slightest scrutiny makes them vulnerable to hard lessons of accountability. If you lose the presidential election, don't incite a mob to overthrow the government. If you choose to join that mob, don't do it in front of an army of photojournalists while carrying a location pinging cell phone. This was his advice to the Gen Xers. And if you hold yourself as a patriot reporter who tells the truth that can't be found anywhere else, don't traffic in lies. Godlewski's lives have consequences beyond his immediate family. Millions of Americans have lost parents, grandparents, siblings, children, and friends to the QAnon cult. They watched in helpless horror as their loved ones were led down rabbit holes from which they may never return. Godlewski bears some responsibility for that, but I wish him no ill will. It's my hope that he'll reflect on his role in curdling the hearts and minds of people who place their trust in him and stop pushing the poison. In that spirit, I offer a stitch of wisdom I learned the hard way, from one patriot reporter to another. It's fun to point fingers until some jerk holds up a mirror. I honestly thought it was a really good article for an opinion piece. Obviously, it's an opinion piece. It has a lot of opinion in it, but I thought it was a pretty good article when I first read it. I think Chris Kelly's a pretty good writer. I've read some of his other articles once I started following him. Sorry, we got to hydrate. Here we go. We're back to the case. Godlewski intends in his verified complaint that the above quoted article contained 3 defamatory characterizations regarding him. First, he maintains that Kelly and the Scranton Times falsely accused Godlewski of having a sexual relationship with a 15-year-old, pursuant to a criminal matter which occurred in 2011, even though he never had sex with an underage girl and only pled to a misdemeanor. That's his claim. The judge is quoting him there. He's saying they falsely accused him of this, even though he never had sex with an underage girl and only pled to a misdemeanor. That's his claim. He avers Kelly deliberately conflated the charges against Mr. Godlewski of having sex with a girl with his plea to a misdemeanor charge for corruption of minors, and claims that there is nothing in Mr. Godlewski's criminal record which indicates, relates, and or references to Mr. Godlewski pleading guilty of having had sex with a 15-year-old girl or any other underage girl. Again, text message and contact. Text message and contact. But the judge isn't buying any of this. Second, Godlewski alleges that by stating that Godlewski was selling rabbit holes on YouTube, coupled with the cartoon of a real estate sign on top of which was written rabbit hole for sale, and beneath the words unrealtor, obviously that's a play on words, right? Rabbit holes for sale, like a rabbit hole you fall down when you do conspiracy theories, and unrealtor, he's a realtor, but his beliefs are unreal, right? And next to a diagram in the center of a sign that represents QAnon, Kelly and Scranton Times gratuitously, maliciously, unnecessarily, and inextricably linked Mr. Godlewski's professional integrity to his alleged political views, using the latter to impugn his integrity as a realtor. He asserts that he made his reputation as a realtor by being trustworthy, reliable, and knowledgeable, and discharging the highest ethical standards, but was terminated by ERA, One Source Realty, because of the defamatory article written and published by Kelly and the Scranton Times. Godlewski submits that he has been defamed in his profession as a realtor, in which he functions as a private individual, and that he remains a private figure with respect to criminal charges which are brought against him, and any plea agreement does not transform him into a public figure in that respect. So he wants to be a public figure when he's a public figure, but his past makes him a private citizen when he wants to be a private citizen. You can't be both. Third, Godlewski alleges that Kelly and the Scranton Times defamed him by referring to him as a purveyor of poison, despite not having one whit of evidence that Mr. Godlewski's views and opinions have irreparably damaged anyone. He contends that despite stating that Mr. Godlewski was not at the Capitol on January 6, 2021, the date of the insurgency, Kelly and the Scranton Times tab Mr. Godlewski as not only a supporter, but an active participant and organizer who was integrally involved in the unlawful assault on the Capitol and is part of a conspiracy to overthrow the United States government by force and is thus a seditionist. Godlewski submits that by implying that he was an integral part of the Capitol insurgency, the article labels Mr. Godlewski not just as a seditionist, insurgent, and a traitor to his country, but also a murder complicit in deaths of 5 persons. It's supposed to say deaths. A murderer complicit in the death of 5 persons. Now, unless you misread the article drastically, it even says that he was not there, but he was featured when USA Today covered it, because he was featured from his text message. His text message said, I just got word they hung Mike Pence or something like that. They got Mike Pence, whatever. That's why he was featured in that article. But they never said he was at the Capitol. Godlewski has advanced 3 causes of action for defamation in a complaint labeled as defamation by imputation of crimes, defamation for blackening Godlewski's reputation as a realtor, and defamation by innuendo by directly associating Godlewski with the insurgency at the Capitol on January 6, 2021. Relying upon the same factual allegations, he has asserted a separate claim for false light, invasion of privacy. Godlewski's final two claims seek to recover special damages for intentional interference with contractual relations and prospective contractual relations. His accompanying prayer for relief seeks to recover actual and special damages, out-of-pocket expenses due to the defamation, and for injury done to his reputation, and liquidated or punitive damages as permitted by applicable law. Remember, his dick doesn't work, so that's Chris Kelly's fault. By order dated July 11, 2023, all discovery in this matter was to be completed by December 31st, 2023. Any motion for summary judgment by Kelly or the Scranton Times was to be filed no later than January 31st, so they had a month, together with a supporting brief, and Godlewski's opposing brief was required to be filed no later than February 29th, another month, 2024. The summary judgment record reflects that on July 9th, 2020, Detective Michelle Mancuso and Detective Justin Leary filed an affidavit of plausible cause seeking the filing of criminal charges against Godlewski based upon his unlawful sexual activity with a minor. Bree. Docket number, blah, blah, blah. Miss Bree informed Detective Mancuso that she had been involved in a sexual relationship with Phil Godlewski while he was the baseball coach at Riverside High in 2008 when she was 14 years old and a ninth grade student at Riverside High School. She further stated they were involved in oral and vaginal sexual intercourse, which started happening in his vehicle in 2008. Bree advised Detective Mancuso on July 7, 2010 that Godlewski has been contacting her while he is at work as a realtor and that she has been keeping in contact with Godlewski through a throwaway phone he keeps with him while at work. After the cell phones and computers of Godlewski were seized and subject to forensic analysis by Corporal Derek Fozard of the Pennsylvania State Police and Detective Justin Leary of Lackawanna County District Attorney's Office, the investigators ascertained that the text message between Godlewski and Bree contained conversations of sexual encounters, exchange of gifts, and a brand new vehicle for the victim. Specifically, Corporal Fozard and Detective Leary were able to verify and authenticate the following text message transmitted from Godlewski to Bree. And this is the text messages that I'm assuming he read in court, but these are also in the order. Here we go. First, you're a little late there, Narc, but thank you. 2:25:10. I just want you to see that I really care about you and not your body or our sex. Maybe that's the only way I can. 2:28:10. The only way we'd ever be sexually satisfied is if we did it like 4 to 5 times a day. 3:6:10. I hate my penis. I just think this should be included in every filing that Phil ever makes in the court of law should have to include this fucking quote. I hate my penis. I don't know why the fuck that happens. You look so good and we're giving you incredible head, then boom, gone. Like, what the fuck? And that will be the legacy of Phil Godlewski. No, Phil, no! Godlewski's two-page day log. 10:14 a.m. Realize that you're only 15, but quickly stop caring. 11:39 a.m. I just pulled your hair from my crotch area. Ha ha. 2:56 p.m. Should we get a jacuzzi suite? On July 9th, 2010, the Commonwealth filed a criminal complaint against Godlewski, charging him with statutory sexual assault, involuntary deviant sexual intercourse, aggravated indecent assault, unlawful contact with a minor, intimidation of a witness, criminal use of a communication facility, corruption of minors, indecent assaults. However, following negotiations, now this is where we find out what actually happened with him in court. I've said this before, but here's actual it's documented. This is how it happened. Following negotiations between Phil's lawyer and the state, Phil and the state filed a criminal information on November 8, 2010, charging Godlewski with a single count of corruption of minors, under the 2010 version. Why would it say the 2010 version? Can anybody bring up the documents that I found to show Phil that the fucking law changed the year he took the guilty plea? Under the 2010 version of 18 PACS 6301A1, on the factual basis that, quote, did repeatedly have inappropriate text messages and contact with a minor. This was docket entry number 6. In connection with that filing, Godlewski originally tendered a nolo contendere plea to corruption of a minor with the understanding that he would receive a special sentence. I told you guys this. He put in a plea. He withdrew it because the judge wouldn't give him the sentence he wanted. He has had to understand he would get a special sentence. But after Judge Garullo informed the parties he was not accepting this conditional plea, not when we still had a witness on the table. This is before Bree dropped out, right? He would not accept this conditional plea. Good on him, by the way, right? It could have been easy just to take a fucking plea deal, but good on him for not. Godlewski then filed a motion to withdraw his plea, which Judge Garullo granted on March 2nd, 2011. He didn't have to let him withdraw the plea either. The judge ultimately gets to pick the sentence. When you sign up for a plea deal, you're basically just saying, oh, well, the prosecutor thinks I should get this. I hope the judge agrees with him. And he doesn't have to let you withdraw it, but he did. Godlewski subsequently pled guilty, not nolo contendere, to the charge of corruption. So he pled guilty. Pled what? Guilty. What? Guilty. So Phil's whole thing where he said, oh, I didn't plead guilty. What people don't understand is if you look this up, if you look up this type of plea, what that actually means, he pled guilty. The other plea doesn't technically an admission of guilt, but allows, it's like no contest, right? I don't know how to say the fucking word, but it's like no contest. You're basically saying, or an Alfred plea. It's like when you're saying, like, I'm not saying I did it, but I know I'm going to get convicted of it. But he withdrew that. And instead, he pled guilty. It's here in black and white. He withdrew that plea and then pled guilty, not no contest, to the charge of corruption of minors on July 11, 2011, and was sentenced by Judge Garullo to 3 months to 23 months home confinement, and was specifically prohibited by Judge Garullo from having any contact with Bree during his first 23 months of supervised probation or whatever, of supervision. Under the heading, ex-baseball coach sentenced for sex with girl 15, the Scranton Times staff writer Dennis J. O'Malley authored an article on July 12, 2011 concerning Godlewski's plea and sentence. That article notes that Godlewski was arrested for having sex with a girl in 2 cars and homes for sale to which he had access to as a real estate agent, and that the relationship with the teen began in 2008 when she was only, how old, chat? 14. In identifying the evidence supporting Godlewski's corruption of minor conviction, the article referenced thousands of text messages between Mr. Godlewski and the girl in which he explicitly described their sexual exploits and expressed how much he cared about her. On August 27, 2011, Judge Garullo released Godlewski from the house arrest program to parole. And upon completing his remaining period of parole, Godlewski was discharged from parole on August 12th, 2013. It's still a shame that all he got was fucking parole. right? He got a little bit of house arrest, 3 months of house arrest, then parole for the rest of it. Anyways, Godlewski testified that the QAnon movement started in 2017 and that he is considered one of the highest anons because he was one of the original members or posters or one of those that was involved in the very beginning. Also a lie. We know that. He doesn't even know what a trip code is. In QAnon, he described himself as a truther, investigative journalist, and patriot reporter who broadcasts QAnon videos on social media platforms to an audience that he claims consists of 17 to 18 million subscribers. 17 to 18 million subscribers. He stated under oath, I like how he puts this, under oath, that as a result of his QAnon posting videos, he currently is worth between $75 to $100 million and receives $5 million per month from Rumble.com alone. $5 million per month from only Rumble. That's his claim. Now we get into some of Phil's crazier claims. So this is what the judge was looking at. Oh no, Phil. Phil, no! Bro. You know how you were talking about karma earlier? You know how you're talking about karma, how it comes back to bite people in the ass? And stuff people say a long time ago often gets brought up? It's not any good for you, bro. The following is a sampling of events that Godlewski genuinely believes either took place or did not occur, and which are the subjects of his social media broadcasts.
Ribeye 15 just gifted 1 subs.
Thank you very much. So I know, like, you guys know who, now this is nothing to shake a stick at, but you guys know who Penguin Zero is? We watch his videos sometimes. He's the guy that's kind of short, but he has like long black hair, and he does like a review and drama and shit like that. I watched him one day go over what he made on Twitch. Now, his Twitch is bigger than Phil's Rumble will ever fucking be. Twitch pays out way more than Rumble ever will be able to do because they don't have the viewer base. And this was in like the height of his streaming on Twitch, okay? Thank you for the gift of sub. This was during his height, okay? And I watched him go over because someone called him out and said he had a problem like spending his money on cards and collectibles. So he's like, I don't have a problem. Let me show you how much I make on Twitch. Now, on Twitch, he was making, I think it was like $35,000 a month, just on Twitch alone, which is insane to think that some people make that all year, and he's making that without ads, just from subscribers and shit like that, not from like an ad read, like just the ads that are built into Twitch, his subscribers, his gifted subs, his Amazon Prime subs, whatever, okay? Now, that's crazy to think that he's making that off one platform when some people make that all fucking year, right? That's their yearly salary, and he's making that in a month. But to also relate him, a huge fucking streamer, a huge fucking content creator, much larger than Phil will ever fucking be by any stretch of the imagination, compare his $35,000 to Phil making $5 million a month. $5 million a month from Rumble. You see how different these numbers are, right? Nobody's making $5 million a month live streaming or producing content or whatever. Nobody. The following is a sampling of events that Godlewski genuinely believes either took place or did not occur, which are the subject of his social media broadcasts. 1. United Airlines Flight 93 did not crash in Somerset County, Pennsylvania. Now, this kind of hits home because of the Pennsylvania thing. On September 11, 2001, and instead landed safely at O'Hare Airport in Chicago, where the passengers were unloaded and on the tarmac and taken to a hangar. 2. There was no shooting at Route 91 Harvest Music Festival near the Mandalay Bay Hotel in Las Vegas, Nevada on October 1st, 2017. 3. Donald Trump ordered the arrest of various public figures by the military and thereafter presided over their trials and executions by military tribunals at Gitmo. Among the individuals whose execution Donald Trump authorized and presided over included former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton on December 31st, 2018, President Joseph Biden in 2019, Senator John McCain and Tom Hanks. The individuals who people believe are President Biden, former Secretary Clinton, and Tom Hanks are actually body doubles or clones. 4. The two women appearing to be Hillary Clinton and her former chief of staff, Uma Abedin, are depicted in a video which looks like the basement of Comet Pizza in Washington, D.C. and shows both of them laying different children on top of ping pong tables, which are in the basement. But this isn't even how the Frazzle Drip conspiracy is supposed to be. This isn't even, he just made this up. The Frazzle Drip, they're like in a hospital bed in this weird video. It's from a horror film. Johnny found it, and we've all been talking about it since then. But he even goes above and he's like, I know it looks like Comet Pizza and Ping Pong's basement. I've been there. He just makes up more shit. Laying different children on top of ping pong tables, which are in a basement, molesting those children, frightening those children with weapons, and then drinking something which would line up with a theory that it is the blood of those children for purposes of extracting adrenochrome, which conduct is the main reason that Hillary Clinton was executed. President Biden was likewise executed for crimes against humanity in 2019 based upon many reports and investigative data indicating that Joe Biden was involved with children. Tom Hanks was also executed by military tribunal because he was a pedophile. That's Phil's statement. When asked about who's your source, he's like, I'm not allowed to tell you my source. And the lawyer's like, specifically though, if they didn't ask for immunity, then you don't automatically like withhold their name. Oh, no, I know you're trying to trick me. I can't tell you that. Okay. 5. Former President George H.W. Bush and George W. Bush and the Bush family were completely complicit with a child sex trafficking ring globally, but only former President George H.W. Bush was executed by a military tribunal as a result. 6. There is audio and video proof that President Bill Clinton's chief of staff, John Podesta, molested children and scalded them with water. 7. President John F. Kennedy was not assassinated on November 22nd, 1963, and did not die until January 21 or 22. Next, California Governor Gavin Newsom killed himself, and the person who is representing himself as Governor Newsom is actually a body double or a clone. Next, former Secretary of Defense Mark Esper turned out to be a cabal deep state plant and a traitor, and the former chief medical advisor to the President of the United States, Anthony Fauci, will be arrested and tried by a military tribunal, and if found guilty of crimes against humanity, likewise will be sentenced to death. The District of Columbia has been under martial law for several months, and the Patriots blew up the tunnels underneath the D.C., which were used for child trafficking. The COVID-19 vaccine was developed by Big Pharma to control the minds and actions of humans by way of the 5G networks operated by cell phone companies. There is a second secret U.S. Constitution, or Constitution of the United States, and the Supreme Court of the United States has already rendered a decision overturning the 2020 election. The foregoing cabal is trafficking children and harvesting adrenochrome for the elites to use it, but also for sex purposes and to play out their sadistic, disgusting fantasies. The storm is a global cleanup of this enterprise that is not only stealing, but torturing, raping, and otherwise molesting our children, but also stealing and trafficking adults, getting them hooked on drugs, fentanyl, and heroin, or worse. The storm is comprised of worldwide military patriots and want to set humanity free, and Godlewski himself has been summoned and called upon to lead a very complex, very covert operation to restore the Republic of America to its people. Godlewski refused to discuss that covert operation during his deposition, claiming that he is subject to a non-disclosure agreement that prohibits him from doing so. Of course he is. I signed an NDA, bro. Where is it? I don't have it. I've never had it. They only let me read it and sign it, and then they took it away. The people who entered the Capitol waving flags on January 6th were part of the false flag operation, and Congress has the files that prove it, that the attack at the Capitol on January 6th was an FBI setup. In addition, Ashley Babbitt was not really shot and killed at the Capitol on January 6th. Godlewski reported live on January 6th that Vice President Mike Pence had been arrested. That's what it was. He had intel that Mike Pence was arrested, not hung. He was arrested. Those NDAs that just fucking... If you had an NDA this fucking tight, the last thing you want to do is get rid of it. Yeah, Narc, this is a guy that we covered probably before you joined. We've been covering him. I've been covering him for fucking years now. He's one of those QAnon leaders. He's just fucking insane. He lies, but he says that he was recruited by the CIA in high school, and he's actually the real Edward Snowden, and the one you see is an actor. But plus a bunch of other things. According to the filings, Commonwealth versus Godlewski. According to the filings, Commonwealth versus Godlewski. Godlewski purchased kitchen cabinets, hardware for the cabinets, and grounded counter. We learned more about this countertop issue, too. Are you ready? Chat, let me know you're locked in. Are you locked in? We got you fucking locked in to learn about Godlewski bouncing a check across some granite countertops and how deep he fucking lied, dude. How deep he manufactured fucking documents. Lied with only $200 and some in the bank. According to filings in Commonwealth versus Godlewski, Godlewski purchased kitchen cabinets, hardware for the cabinets, and granite countertops from Mariotti Building Products. And on the date of delivery of the kitchen materials to his residence on November 13, 2019, he provided Mariotti with a check in the amount of $21,789.84, representing the balance due. So the day it was delivered, he gave him a check. Now, he blames all this on Carrie. They're going to lock up Carrie, so he just said, I did it. And he was out of town, and she didn't understand, and it was fixing to clear. The check would have cleared any day now. It actually cleared the day after he wrote it, but it was too late then. That's a lie, because he had a bunch of time to fix this and never did. He just kept lying about it. I don't know what he thought would happen, but it was bad. Oh, yeah, his ex-wife, I guess. Thank you. 2 days later, Godlewski sent Mariotti, before they even contacted him. Okay, they didn't contact him. Yeah, Dory. I'm an idiot. I said Carrie. Dory. 2 days later, Godlewski sent Mariotti an email stating that the check he gave Mariotti posted to his account twice. So Mariotti got the check, right? He got it. Hold on. So on Wednesday, he gives him a check for the balance after they deliver, so it's probably in the evening. This hasn't even cleared Mariotti's bank yet, I guarantee it. And on Friday, he sends him an email and says, it posted twice. The check that I gave you posted twice, totaling $43,579.68. Which also was a lie, of course. $21,789. 43,579.68. And in subsequent emails in late November, so weeks later, in late November, he represented to Mariotti that the second posting was returned because he only had $35,000 in his bank account. So he sent him a check. It wasn't going to clear. He knew it wasn't going to clear. 2 days later, he said, oh, it posted twice, so there might be something fishy going on. Then weeks later, he sends him an email and saying, oh, well, I didn't have enough money. That's why the second posting was returned. On December 10th, almost a month later, Godlewski advised Eugene Mariotti that Wells Fargo made an error and withdrew the $21,789.84 from his account twice. So he told us, when I had that voice interview with him, he told us that the house sold and everything went through, and all he had to do, if he would have just been a couple days later, the money went right through, right? He was just waiting for a check to clear that hadn't cleared. This is over a month later. No check takes a fucking month to clear your bank. He knew he didn't have the money. He knew the money wasn't coming, waiting for a check to clear. It was just getting ready to clear. Okay. On December 10th, a month later, Godlewski advised Eugene Mariotti that Wells Fargo made an error and withdrew the $21,789.84 from his account twice. And on January 2nd, almost 2 months later, he told Mariotti, they were trying to work with him. I think the gist of it from people who's talked to the Mariottis about it and posts they've made and things they've said, like they wanted to work with him. They didn't like have him bounce a check, then not call him, not contact him, not nothing, and just go to the cops, right? We're talking about 2 months later. 2 months later, they're still trying to get money out of him, and he's still lying. Eventually, you have to go to the cops. You're out $20,000. Damn. On January 2nd, 2020, he told Eugene Mariotti that he filed a lawsuit against the bank to recover the funds and that his attorney would like to know if Mariotti wanted to cooperate in the lawsuit if needed. So he's like, well, I'm sorry, you don't have your money, plus they took my money out. They took it out of my account and they didn't give it to you, so we're going to have to file a lawsuit. You want to be part of it? Additionally, Godlewski provided Mariotti with what he represented as his Wells Fargo bank statements reflecting that on November 13, 2019, which is the same day check 2022 in the amount of $21,789.84 was issued to Mariotti, there was a balance of $34,922.47 in the account. This is the falsifying bank records. This is it. He said, here's my, if you don't believe me, here's my bank statement. There's $35,000 in there. They withdrew it twice, canceled them both, took my money, didn't give it to you. Let's sue them. What a weird fucking scheme, dude. What a weird fucking scheme. However, Godlewski's actual statement from that day from Wells Fargo Bank confirmed the actual balance in the account on November 13th, 2019 was $267.95. He wrote a check for $21,000, almost $22,000, when he had $200 in the bank, and then lied to them for 3 fucking months. And lied that he was doing a lawsuit, lied that they took the money from him, lied that he had extra money in there, produced a fake bank statement, which isn't hard to do. You can just go to inspect page and change the amount if you want to. That's how I made my bank statement that one time, say $17 million, 17 cents or whatever. What a fucking idiot. And that check, 2022, in the amount of $21,789.84 was never deducted from the account balance because the balance was only $267.95 when the check was presented at the bank. He's off by orders of magnitude. Jesus Christ. Then finally, on February 20th, this started November 13th. So you have November 13th, December 13th, January 13th, February. So after 3 months of him not paying them and lying about it the whole time, Godlewski was charged with forgery. Now, Phil's made posts like, fuck these guys. They wouldn't even, like, it was just a banking error and they wouldn't let me fix it. They were just wanted to get me in trouble. Really? If you sold somebody a $20,000 car and 3 months later they're still handing you fake bank statements and saying like, oh, I'm going to have to sue them. I don't know where the money, they took it from me. Sorry, you didn't get it. It was supposed to go to you. And your bank's like, no, it just didn't clear. He doesn't have enough money in there. Is that not giving him time to pay, or is that like above and beyond what you should fucking do? Dude, I wouldn't have gave him 3 months. I'd have been like, look, at the next week, when the check bounced, I would have said, look, you have till the end of this week to give me my money or I'm going to the police. They gave him 3 months. He was charged with forgery of bank records, theft by deception, tampering with records, bad checks. Godlewski later pled guilty to tampering with records and bad checks before Judge Michael J. Barassi on February 23rd, 2021. Products with a copy of the doctored and fraudulent Wells Fargo bank statement reflecting a significantly higher balance than what was in the actual account, and that the fraudulent bank statement further reflected the check to be withdrawn from the account twice. So he even went in there and made it look like it was withdrawn twice, even though it wasn't withdrawn even once, to make it appear as though the bank erred. He further acknowledged that he did unlawfully pass a certain check dated November 13, 2019 for payment of money in the amount of $21,789.84 payable to the order of Marriott Building Products and drawn on Wells Fargo bank account, knowing well at the time of passing the check that it would not be honored by the drawee. He knew it would bounce when he wrote it. After Judge Barassi ordered a pre-sentence investigation report in aid of sentencing, he sentenced Godlewski on June 22nd, 2021 to an intermediate punishment program comprised of 1 month imprisonment at the Lackawanna County Prison, followed by 3 months of house arrest and 4 years of probation, which unless he got off early, that means that he's still on probation until 2025. Near the conclusion of the pretrial discovery period, Godlewski filed a motion seeking to obtain discovery of the financial wealth of Kelly and the Scranton Times in connection with his claim for punitive damages. The wealth of the defendant is a factor to be considered by the fact finder in determining an appropriate amount of punitive damages. He wanted to know how much is the Scranton Times and Chris Kelly worth. And a defendant's net worth is recognized as valid measure of a defendant's wealth for purposes of punitive damages. Rule 4003.7 governs such financial wealth discovery and states that a party may obtain information concerning the wealth of a defendant in a claim for punitive damages only upon order of the court setting forth appropriate restrictions as to the time of the discovery, the scope of the discovery, and the dissemination of the material discovered. So we can do wealth discoveries as long as it seems like you have merit. There's a reason you should be doing this. Plus, it's limited in scope, timeline, and who gets this information. They don't want it publicly available. For more than 20 years, the Court of Common Pleas of Lackawanna County has required plaintiffs to first articulate facts or produce evidence establishing a prima facie basis for recovery of punitive damages as a condition precedent to securing financial wealth discovery rules. So you have to at least put up some articulable facts of why you need it and do you have a case. Our application of that threshold requirement for financial wealth discovery is consistent with appellate precedent. And then it talks about an appellate. In this case, the trial court properly concluded that Applebee's had the right to punitive damage discovery under Rule 4003.7 based on evidence that the appellants initially and wantonly filed a second federal lawsuit despite full knowledge of the prior settlement between Applebee's and Kimball. In addressing Godlewski's request for discovery under Rule 4003.7, Judge Minora, which was the original judge, observed that Godlewski must prove defendants acted with malice to succeed in his claims, and that were Godlewski to establish defendant's liability, he would necessarily be entitled. So if you can prove actual malice, that will establish that they're liable, and then you will be entitled to consideration for punitive damages, which means that you can get these records. When an individual's actions are of such outrageous nature as to demonstrate intentional, willful, wanton, or reckless conduct. He concluded that case law makes clear that a claim for punitive damages alone is insufficient. So if you just say, I have punitive damages without any proof, that's not enough to get these documents. Is insufficient to support a request for wealth discovery unless accompanied with evidence to establish there is a factual basis for the claim. And that at minimum, a plaintiff must identify facts that establish a prima facie basis for the recovery of punitive damages under Pennsylvania law. Consequently, to secure financial wealth discovery from Kelly and the Scranton Times, Godlewski was required to identify facts or evidence establishing a prima facie basis for finding that Kelly or the Scranton Times had acted with actual malice. So the judge told him in the case before discovery closed that he's going to have to prove something here to show that you're going to qualify for this before I'm even going to give you this, right? Prima facie means on the face, looking at it, it looks like there's a legitimate claim here, just on the face, right? Or at first sight, at first glance kind of deal. Consequently, to secure financial wealth discovered from Kelly and the Scranton Times, Godlewski was required to identify facts or evidence establishing prima facie basis for finding that Kelly and the Scranton Times acted with actual malice by displaying a reckless disregard for the truth or falsity of the factual statements contained in the subject article. However, on January 12, 2024, Judge Minora denied Godlewski's motion for discovery under Rule 4003.7. And when this came out, I told you guys, like, if she's denying this rule, she's not even letting him look at their financials. She's saying to the world, he does not have a case. He does not have a case. Based on the undeniable truth that Godlewski has not submitted in support of his motion any evidence, as he must to establish a prima facie basis for the entitlement of punitive damages. This is huge, right? Because his whole case relies on the fact that they did this with actual malice. And he can't even, and he would have to prove that to win the case. He can't even prove it at first sight, or on the face of it, initially, that there's any grounds. He didn't provide a single piece of evidence that said that, oh, there might be a case here that they were acting with actual malice. He couldn't even get by the check, which is a lot lower, to get their bank records, much less go to court and prove they did something to him, right? He couldn't even get past that part. Whatever. Emphasis in the original. Even though discovery in this matter was concluded on January 12, 2024, Judge Minora found that on that date that Godlewski has not at present satisfied his burden to convince us he's entitled to conduct a wealth discovery. And if he's not entitled to conduct a wealth discovery, he's not entitled to win the case. He can't win it. Kelly and the Scranton Times have filed a motion for summary judgment seeking to dismiss Godlewski's defamation and false light claims on the grounds that Godlewski cannot establish that any factual statements concerning him in the article are false. Godlewski cannot prove that a single fucking statement in this article, including the fact that he had sex with a minor in the homes and in the cars, and she was 15 and possibly even 14 at the time, he cannot prove any of that. Any of that. That's their claim. And the judge agreed with them. Concerning him in the article are false, and that other content set forth in this article constitute Kelly's legally protected opinions that are not actionable. They also assert that they are entitled to judgment as a matter of law since Godlewski cannot prove by clear and convincing evidence that any alleged false statements were published with actual malice, in that Kelly or the Scranton Times knew that the statements were false or acted with reckless disregard as to whether they were true or false. Kelly and the Scranton Times further submit that Godlewski has not produced any evidence of harm to his reputation. Phil didn't participate in this case. If you're watching this and you're just fucking disgusted and you hate me and love fucking Phil, he didn't produce a single piece of evidence that there was any harm to his reputation, even though that's the biggest part of making this case, that they harmed you in some way. When asked about it on the witness stand, he said, I think that's for a jury to decide. You don't go to a jury until you have a case. Or any other recoverable damages that he claims are attributable to defamatory or false light statements. In support of their motion for summary judgment, Kelly and the Scranton Times have submitted 1,147 pages of exhibits, including among those exhibits are portions of the depositions of Godlewski, Dory, Sierra O'Malley, Marie Godlewski, his mom, Sherry Strock, Amanda Torini, Joseph, this is Joe M., Macianis, and Kelly. They have, I didn't realize that the old assistant principal or whatever that wrote that letter to Phil or called Phil when he got the letter, I didn't realize that he testified. They have also presented the affidavits completed by Miss Bree, Thomas Neslow, former Assistant District Attorney Patricia Lafferty. Oh, I'm sorry. The former Assistant District Attorney also wrote a fucking affidavit for this case. That's crazy. And Linda, Bree's mom. Kelly and the Scranton Times note that no liability can attach for true statements. What is the greatest defense for slander, libel, or defamation of any kind? If what you say is true. Truth is always a defense for defamation. And emphasize that Godlewski pled guilty to corruption of a minor for his inappropriate text message and contact with Bree, as memorialized in 2010 text messages to her, as quoted in the affidavit of probable cause supporting the criminal information. Citing Godlewski's deposition testimony, they assert that Godlewski concedes his corruption charge was for having sex with a minor, and that, per his guilty plea colloquy, he admits to doing things he was charged with. This is when Tim Hinton had him and said, you were charged with these things for having sex with a minor. Yep. And you understand that by signing this guilty plea, again, we've seen it all. To wit, Phil Godlewski did have sex with a minor being under the age of 16. You understand that you were charged with these things for having sex with a minor. Yep. You understand that by signing this, you're pleading guilty to the things you are charged with. Yep. And you took this plea deal and pled to one of them, and you're admitting guilt to the things you are charged with as soon as you sign it. Yep. So you admitted to having sex with... Nope. I was just texting her. I shouldn't have been texting her. Nope. He lost the plot. He admits to doing the things he was charged with in the criminal information. Referencing the deposition testimony and affidavits they have attached as exhibits, Kelly and the Scranton Times submit that there is substantial evidence proving Godlewski... Here you go. There is substantial evidence proving Godlewski was in a sexual relationship with Bree when she was a minor. Grounds. The judge is agreeing with them that there's evidence here. There's substantial evidence. Kelly and the Scranton Times argue that due to Godlewski's status as a public figure, he must also establish that they made a false or defamatory statement with actual malice, which is defined as the knowledge of the publications were false or reckless disregard of whether they were true or false by clear and convincing evidence. Citing New York Times v. Sullivan, they state that prior to preparing the article, Kelly reviewed archived news articles at the Times Tribune and court documents from the criminal case, and Kelly also talked to people in law enforcement who corroborated statements Kelly made in this article. Kelly and the Scranton Times posit that negligence or departure from journalistic standards is insufficient as a matter of law to establish the reckless disregard element for actual malice. To prove reckless disregard or to prove actual malice is a huge standard. It's a huge standard. And the reason it's there is so you don't chill free speech against public figures. Kelly and the Scranton Times additionally argue that certain statements in the article are protected under the fair reporter privilege as an account of official government reports or proceedings, and that Godlewski has produced insufficient evidence to prove loss of reputation or actual harm for his defamation claims. He didn't present anything in court. With respect to the later defense, they cite various exhibits reflecting that Sunita Ora let Godlewski go from his real estate job because of his QAnon videos. Why did Phil lose his job? Not for this article. Phil lost his job because he was a Q-tard. And that Godlewski likes his career now and he's never going back to real estate. The dumbest thing he could have fucking posted while suing someone for defamation and causing them to lose their job, saying, I don't even like that fucking job. I'm never going back. Godlewski is worth $75 million and earns $5 million per month. And Dory filed for divorce in March 2021, not due to the article, but due to Godlewski's infidelity and his involvement in QAnon, which she describes as a cult. I feel like a DJ up here. I need a fucking mixer or something. Kelly and the Scranton Times assert that Godlewski's false light claim and demand for punitive damages should be dismissed for the same reasons, warranting summary judgment on Godlewski's defamation claim. In his opposition to the motion for summary judgment, Godlewski acknowledges that, as a public figure, he bears the burden of proving the falsehood or defamatory communication. The falsehood of the defamatory communication. So, because he acknowledges as a public figure, he has to prove that he didn't have sex with Bree, right? He has to prove that it is false. He acknowledged that. He knows that it's his job to prove that it didn't happen. But he contends that the article falsely accused him of sexual activity with a minor or committing a sex crime against a minor. With regard to the affidavits of Bree, Sierra O'Malley, and Linda, her mom, attesting that Godlewski was involved in a sexual relationship with Bree while she was a minor, Godlewski asserts that he, quote, offered his oral testimony that his sexual relationship with Bree began after Bree was an adult, thereby creating a genuine issue of material fact which must be submitted to a jury. This is not true. You have multiple witnesses that are coming out and saying, hell yeah, they had a relationship when she was 15. He's like, nuh-uh. And now we got to let a jury decide. Now it's got to go to the jury, boys. I said, nuh-uh. Godlewski asserts that the article suggesting that Godlewski was not an honest realtor, which constitutes a statement of fact capable of defamatory meaning, argues that the suggestion of unreality in the article stemming from his QAnon activity and his broadcast questions his fitness as a realtor. Godlewski further alleges that despite admitting that Godlewski was not present at the Capitol on January 6, the column goes on to link Godlewski with the event by mentioning Godlewski's post on Facebook that day and falsely implied that he was affiliated with the insurrection on January 6, 2021. Godlewski admits that as a public figure, he must demonstrate actual malice on the part of Kelly and the Scranton Times. He also agrees that such actual malice must be proven with clear and convincing evidence. He agrees with that. He can't disagree with this because it's basically written in black and white as law. He has to prove the actual malice with clear and convincing evidence. Godlewski contends that reporters have an ethical standard to pursue information to the best of their ability to get a complete story. Now, let me tell you how crazy this is, okay? Let's say that a journalist wants to write a story, and it's about the sheriff's department. So he calls the civilian involved, the civilian's witnesses. He asks the police department for a statement. He asked the deputies that at this scene for a statement. He asked the EMT that shows up for a statement. He asked the medevac flight people for a statement. He asked everybody around this accident for a statement. And he writes the article. And then someone in that article sues him and says, well, there was a random person that walked by between 3:10 to 3:15, and you didn't even ask them. There's no journalistic standard that you build a body of evidence. There's no standard that you have to review everything that ever existed forever, right? Because it would be impossible. It would be impossible to track down all this. I think Chris Kelly reviewed the articles, got the police report, got all the stuff from the court, talked to his editor, talked to law enforcement officials around the case at that time, and I think that's more than enough for his journalistic standards. He tried to talk to Bree and Phil. But Phil says, reporters have ethical standard to pursue information to the best of their ability to get a complete story, including the ethical responsibility to review all the documents listed in a criminal case, and claims that Kelly and the Scranton Times deviated from acceptable journalistic standards to a degree which constitutes reckless conduct. So he basically claims you didn't read the colloquy, the guilty plea colloquy, where I just admitted to, but they did read it. Obviously, they read it. He's trying to put a spin on it that contact was not sexual contact, it was fucking phone contact. Remember when Phil told his 15-year-old girlfriend that he had a twin brother that died from an overdose on marijuana because he didn't want her smoking pot with boys her own age? I just thought about that. I figured I'd bring it up. That's
my purse! I don't know you!
There you go. He submits that Pennsylvania courts consistently apply the same analysis to defamation and false light claims when the causes of action are based on the same set of underlying facts, and that based upon his reasons articulated in the analysis of the defamation claims, the motion for summary judgment must be denied with respect to false light, invasion of privacy claims. Kelly and the Scranton Times filed a reply brief in which they assert that Godlewski has not denied in his opposing brief Kelly's opinion that Godlewski spread lies on the internet. In support of their argument that Godlewski was not harmed by the article, he hasn't even denied it. Kelly and the Scranton Times underscore that Godlewski himself Godlewski himself spread this article and told people to check it out and told people to leave reviews and has shared it and screenshot it and used it and talked about it. Godlewski himself circulated Kelly's article to thousands of people on social media the day that it was published, along with a message that stated, "Kelly took the bait." Oral arguments on the motion for summary judgment was conducted on August 19, 2024. Upon the filing of the transcript of that proceeding on August 29, 2024, the motion for summary judgment became ripe for disposition. So basically, they just had oral arguments on Mariah's birthday. On Mariah's birthday. And the transcript came out on the 29th. And basically what he's saying is like, once we had oral arguments and the transcript came out so I could fucking read it and judge it, it's time now to depose this, to have a disposition on this, to have an opinion on this, to talk about it. And here we go. The discussion. Bah, bah, bah. No! Summary judgment is appropriate in cases where the record clearly demonstrates that there is no genuine issue of material facts and that the moving party is entitled to a judgment as a matter of law. Summary judgment is appropriate where the facts are laid out and there's no genuine issue like contradicting the evidence or it's up to the jury, something up to the jury. Like everybody understands this is the evidence. We all agree this is the evidence. And the moving party is entitled to a judgment as a matter of law because there's no case here. The moving party bears the burden of demonstrating the absence of any issues on material fact. So they basically both agree on all the material facts. And the trial court must evaluate all the facts and make reasonable inferences in a light most favorable to Phil. Let me read that again. The Scranton Times, I'm just going to change their names out, okay? The Scranton Times bears the burden of demonstrating that there's an absence in any issue with material facts. Everybody agrees on the material facts. They have to prove that basically we all agree on the facts here. And then the court, the judge, must evaluate all the facts. And if he has to infer something that's not written down in stone, if he has to make reasonable inferences, they have to be in a light most favorable to Phil. So not only was there not enough evidence for the case to proceed, there damn sure isn't enough evidence for Phil to ever win because the onus on the judge is to take everything into account and be as generous, absolutely as generous to Phil. Like if there's like a doubt here, if was this red or this blue, he has to give it to Phil. He has to side with Phil on this. And even in giving him a lot most favorable to Phil, he still decided there's no fucking case here. What's the question? That's the link to sub, but if you haven't linked your account yet, it's pinned over on the mod chat. It is the Prime Gaming one. The first thing you have to do is go to the Prime Gaming website and link your Twitch account and your Amazon account, and then you go to the one she just linked, and it'll say subscribe to Cold Beer Confessional, you just click it. If you don't have them linked, then they won't work, but after they link their Prime account. Hold on, I'll grab it. Ba-ba-da-ba-ba. It's gaming. Oh yeah, I'll just share it. This is the account you link them together, and then once your Amazon account's linked to your Twitch account, then you go to that website she just posted, that twitch.tv/sub/Cold Beer Confessional, and when you open it up, there'll be a button that says subscribe with Prime. Back to it. So Phil couldn't win even in the most generous lot. Motions for summary judgment. Oh, wait, we skipped some. A trial court may grant summary judgment only when the right to such a judgment is clear and free from doubts. So it can't be like up in the air. It can't be like, I don't know, or he has a little bit of a case here. He has this, he does that, whatever, right? It cannot be that. Instead, it has to be clear and free from doubts. And free from doubt. Motions, yeah, that's why we got the website. The app doesn't like it as much. The website's pretty cool as long as you open in browser. The twitch.tv/sub/Cold Beer Confessional. That's probably the easiest way to do it. Motions for summary judgment necessarily and directly implicate the plaintiff's proof of the elements of a cause of action. In responding to a motion for summary judgment, the non-moving party cannot rest upon the non-movant's pleadings or answers in order to withstand the entry of a summary judgment. So, in responding to a motion for summary judgment, Phil cannot just say, hey, I testified that I didn't do, I testified I didn't do this. That's not enough. You can't just use your pleadings or your answers to withstand summary. There has to be some type of evidence here. To survive a motion for summary judgment, the non-moving party must set forth specific facts by way of an affidavit or in some other way as provided by the rule, demonstrating that a genuine issue exists. Failure of a non-moving party to adduce sufficient evidence on an issue essential to his or her case and on which she or he bears the burden of proof establishes the entitlement of the moving party to a judgment as a matter of law. This is all case law, but we can skim through it. Thus, it must be determined whether the record contains insufficient evidence of facts to make out prima facie cause of action such that there is no issue to be decided by the fact finder. Under the rule announced in Borough of Netley Glow v. American Surety Company of New York, the party moving summary judgment may not rely upon the deposition testimony or affidavits of its own witnesses to establish a non-existence of genuine issues of material fact, since the credibility of that oral testimony is a matter of the fact finder. So you can't just use oral testimony of your own witnesses to say, hey, there's the case here. But it does not preclude the grant of summary judgment when the moving party relies on testimonial evidence of an adverse party. So if you're relying on evidence of the person you're going against, then yeah, you can use that. Nor does it foreclose the entry of summary judgment based upon testimony of a witness whose interests are adverse to the movement. So also a witness of the person you're going against. You can use that. Defamation burden of proof. Under Section 8343, the Uniform Single Publication Act, 42 PA CS, Godlewski has the burden of proving, 1, the defamatory character of Kelly's article, 2, its publication by Kelly in the Scranton Times, easy. So the 2 is easy. 3, that it applies to Phil, easy. 4, the recipient's understanding of defamatory meaning, sort of easy. Like most people would know this is a bad article about Phil. 5, the recipient's understanding of it as intended to apply to Phil. Obviously, that's easy. It was about Phil. 6, special harm resulting to Phil from his publication. He never proved any harm. He never proved it was defamatory. 7, the abuse of a conditionally privileged occasion by Kelly in the Scranton Times. Obviously, he didn't prove that. Section 8343B generally provides that when the issue is properly raised, the defendant is in a defamation action bears the burden of proving the truth of the defamatory communication, that the privileged character of the occasion on which it was published, and the character of the subject matter of defamatory comment as of public concern. But decisional precedent has further developed the law of defamation, recognizing the tort's evolving constitutional infrastructure and the contours of the law of libel, which involve the accommodation of federal constitutional interests of free speech and a robust press with state interest in protecting the reputation of its citizens from defamatory falsehoods. So, of course, we want to protect free speech, obviously. As formulated by the federal and state appellate authority, the relevant burdens in a defamation action depend on the status of the plaintiff, the subject matter of the communication, and the nature of the defendant. If the statement in question, this is all case law. We're just going to go through as quick as possible. If the statement in question bears on a matter of public concern or the defendant is a member of the media, First Amendment concerns compel the plaintiff to prove that the alleged defamatory statement is in fact false. Similarly, the First Amendment provides heightened protection for liable defendants when the plaintiff is a public or official or public figure, in which event the burden is shifted to the plaintiff to show that the statement was false, right? We don't want to stop free speech just because somebody has money or they're a big public figure or whatever. Godlewski has stipulated that he is a public figure for the purposes of this litigation, and as such, he bears the burden of proving that Kelly's factual statements concerning him are false. Furthermore, under Gertz v. Robert Welch, the appropriate standard of fault depends on whether the plaintiff is a public or private figure. If plaintiff is a private figure, he or she need only prove negligence on the part of the defendant in order to recover damages. And I think that's what Phil was going for, was negligence, saying like he didn't review all the documents or whatever, but that's not enough in a public figure case. However, if the plaintiff is a public figure, then to satisfy the First Amendment strictures, the plaintiff must establish that the defendant made a false and defamatory statement with actual malice. Therefore, to survive the motion for summary judgment filed by the Kelly and the Scranton Times, Godlewski must adduce sufficient evidence to establish triable issues of fact with respect to his burden of proving that Kelly and the Scranton Times, 1, made false statement of fact, 2, that were capable of defamatory meaning, and 3, was published with actual malice. Phil never addressed this actual malice caused in any way, shape, or form. Ever. He didn't even try. The elements of Godlewski's burden of proof will be addressed. Seriatim? I don't know how to say that. Seriatim? Seriatim. They will be addressed seriatim. Falsity of the factual statements. Godlewski must first produce sufficient evidence that Kelly published a factual statement about him that was false. The law does not require perfect truth, so long as any inaccuracies do not render the substance and gist of the statement untrue. So the law doesn't say that it has to be perfect truth. I'm trying to think what would be a good one for this one. Let's say I wrote an article that says Will Smith stole candy from a homeless child, orphan, from a homeless orphan. And I had a picture of Will Smith taking a sucker from a homeless orphan. What I leave out of the article is that he had been told that the piece of candy was fucking poisoned, right? So the law doesn't require perfect truth as long as I'm not using an inaccuracy or omitting something that changes the substance of the story, right? So the law doesn't require perfect truth. That would be omitting something that that would be omitting something that changed the story. But let's say I wrote a story that says Will Smith steals candy from homeless orphan after being told it was poisoned. And then what actually comes out is he wasn't told it was poisoned. He was told that it may or may not be poisoned. Well, that's perfect truth, right? I said he was told poisoned. He was told it may or may not be poisoned. That's the perfect truth. That would be fine. But if I left out the poison part completely, then that would be omitting something that changed the substance. Case law. Rather, the defense of substantial truth absolves a defendant even if he or she cannot justify every word of the alleged defamatory matter. It is sufficient if the substance of the charge be proved true, irrespective of a slight inaccuracy in the details, right? So as long as the overall idea is true, even if some of the details are fuzzy or inaccurate or not exactly truthful, as long as the overall substance, the overall idea is true. Godlewski contends that the article on February 14th contains 3 factual statements that are false and defamatory. First, he alleges that the article falsely stated that he had a sexual relationship with Bree when she was a minor. Secondly, Godlewski asserts that by using the word unrealtor to describe him, that the article falsely made an imputation that he was not fit to be a realtor. Third, he avers that Kelly's article falsely tied Godlewski to a criminal insurrection at the Capitol on January 6th where there were criminal acts for which people have been criminally prosecuted and criminally convicted. Kelly and the Scranton Times referenced the testimony and affidavits of Bree, Sierra O'Malley, and Linda, Bree's mom, and others as an abundance of evidence in this case that stacks up against Godlewski in his attempt to prove the falsity of the factual representation in the article. Godlewski counters that the Nantiglow rule bars Kelly and the Scranton Times from securing summary judgment based upon testimonial evidence. So the rule I told you earlier where you can't use your own statements or favorable witness statements, Godlewski is correct in that regard. And the credibility and weight of that testimony will not serve as grounds for the grant of summary judgment in this case. It says, under the Nantiglow rule, the party moving forward to summary judgment may not rely solely on its own testimonial affidavits or depositions or those of its witnesses to establish the non-existence of genuine issues of material facts, but may rely upon documentary evidence or deposition testimony. So they can't use those affidavits. They can use it in court, but not for summary judgment. Because Phil could just testify, nuh-uh. Godlewski's plea deal and sentencing in Godlewski 1, his arrest in Godlewski 2, that was the first one was with Bree, the second one was for the check, and his above-quoted social media QAnon broadcast predated the publication of Kelly's articles on February 14, 2021, as noted above. The only text messages quoted in the affidavit of probable cause in Godlewski 1 are those in which Godlewski acknowledged and described oral sex with Bree, the presence of her hair in his crotch area, and his sexual activity with her in 2010 when she was 15 years of age. Remember when Phil said none of those text messages would make it to court because he's got an expert that said that he didn't write them? A bunch of vindictive 13 and 14-year-olds set him up. You guys remember any of that? I don't know. That was a weird part of the story. So instead, they're using everything from the cases, including the text messages. Godlewski 1, presence of hair in his crotch and his sexual activity with her in 2010 when she was 15 years of age. Godlewski 1 Supra on page 15. Those text messages served as the factual predicate for the single count of corruption of minors 18 PACS 6301A1 contained in the criminal information charging.
Knight just resubscribed for 10 months.
Thank you very much. So what's being said here is Phil's always claimed that he just pled to this charge that didn't have nothing to do with the text messages because everybody knew they were fake. His guy proved that they were faked. He says that all that was made up and they didn't have a case and he just pled to it because his grandpa told him to on a bench or whatever. What the judge is saying here is that these text messages exist. And these text messages are what they use to charge you with corruption of a minor. Okay? And because you pled to the corruption of a minor that are clearly based on these sexual text messages, you are in fact pleading guilty to having sex with a minor because of these sexual text messages where you said we had sex with a minor. These text messages have never been questioned. They've never been, some experts never thrown them out. Phil doesn't have an expert. Everything he told to his followers is a fucking lie. When he told you he had an expert that's been thrown out, he hired a private investigator, none of that exists. The private investigator he hired doesn't exist. Yeah, it's hard to come off sugar and caffeine. I get to where I drink 2 sodas a day, which isn't great. I was drinking 1, but now I drink 1 like throughout the whole day, and I take 1 home with me. But I've been trying to drink a lot more water, but you can't do it cold turkey. Oh, I can't. You might be stronger than me, but I can't. Those text messages serves as a factual predicate before. Those are the things that are in fact that cause this charge, the single count of corruption of minors, contained in the criminal information charging that Godlewski did repeatedly have inappropriate text messages and contact with a minor in 2010. Indeed, Godlewski's counsel conceded at the time of oral argument that, quote, the corruption of minors complaint, the corruption of minors count in the complaint was consistent with the information in the affidavit. Let me tell you again. You guys remember the affidavit for probable cause. That said, Phil Godlewski was having sex with Bree when she was 15, fake cell phones, houses, cars, everything. At the time that Phil took his plea deal, okay, for the corruption of minors, he and his lawyer conceded that the corruption of minors counts in the complaint was consistent with all the information in the affidavit. So when he took that charge, he agreed that he got the charge because of that affidavit, the charging affidavit. You understand me? So when he pled guilty, this is case closed. He admitted to it. In his guilty plea colloquy, Godlewski won. Godlewski admitted that his executed colloquy was a signed statement, that he knew exactly what you were charged with and what you were pleading to, and that he understood that by pleading guilty, you are admitting that you did the things you are charged with, that he understood the elements of the crime charged that you are pleading to, and that he admitted that you did the above stated acts constituting corruption of a minor. This is from Godlewski 1, docket entry number 5 at PP13. The following clause appears directly above his signature on his guilty plea colloquy. I affirm that I have read the above document in its entirety and have reviewed it with my attorney. I affirm that I am aware of the full implications of pleading guilty and nevertheless wish to plead to the specified offenses. I further affirm that my signature on this guilty plea colloquy and initials on each page of this document are true and correct. Based upon the truthfulness of Godlewski's attestation, Judge Garello accepted Godlewski's guilty plea and sentenced him to 3 to 23 months house arrest. It is well settled that guilty plea constitutes an admission to all of the facts averred in the indictment. Listen, he can't say, oh, I just played to this one because this one had nothing to do with sex. It is well settled that a guilty plea, you may not know this if you ever plead guilty to something, a guilty plea constitutes an admission to all of the facts in the indictment. yeah, they're dropping some charges because you're not forcing them to go through court and this and that, the other. When you sign a guilty plea, you are admitting to all of the facts in the indictment. And we've read the indictment. We've all read the indictment, right? It says on or about January, blah, blah, blah. They met up. They started having sex. They wrote notes. They text each other. They met up in houses and cars. When he signed the guilty plea, it was an admission to, I don't think Phil understands how law works, how guilty pleas work. When you sign an admission or a guilty plea, it's an admission to all the facts averred, which means stated, in the indictment. And that a trial court may grant summary judgment based upon such an admission. So when you do a guilty plea, that's a type of summary judgment, right? A guilty plea is equivalent to and has the same force as a conviction at a trial under Pennsylvania law. Because a guilty plea is an admission of facts in the complaint, the criminal complaint, it is conclusive proof of the wrongdoing for which he or she was charged. For that reason, a person determined to be guilty of a crime following a plea of guilty cannot be heard to deny in civil action that which was established in his prior determination of guilt without proof that his guilt was procured by fraud, perjury, or some other manner of error sufficient to set aside his determination of guilt. So literally, I don't know who Phil's lawyer is, but under Pennsylvania law, if you go to criminal court and you sign a guilty plea, you are admitting to everything in the indictment. And later on, whether you're the complainant or you're the fucking defendant, you show up in civil court, you cannot deny what you already pled guilty to, which was the entire indictment, unless you can show that there was fraud or a perjury or some other manner or error sufficient to set aside. But he's saying he knew what he was pleading to. He knew what the charge was. He knew what it entailed, and he signed it of his own free will. That's why Tim Hinton spent so long going over the guilty plea colloquy. Is that your signature? Is that your initials? Is that where you signed? Can you read that? What's that say? Corruption of minors. You understood that. You signed that. You spoke with your lawyer. You went over it. You filled it out. You signed it on the back. All that stuff. Because Phil didn't say he was forced to do it. He didn't say he committed perjury. He didn't say it was fraudulent. He didn't say there was some error in it. He said, yep, that's me. But what you don't understand is they dropped on, nope, just answer the questions, Phil. He can't even legally go into a civil court in Pennsylvania and say, I didn't do those things anymore. He pled guilty unless he can prove that he was tricked into it, which he's already testified he wasn't. There ain't a... Phil, you fucked with the wrong goddamn lawyer, bro. In the wrong courthouse with the wrong fucking judge. You're fucking with the wrong... I know you think you can lie to anybody, and they'll believe you, and they'll take it, and you try to convince me you were a secret spy. Just wait, bro. It'll all be revealed soon. Bro, you fucked up. No, Phil, no! Facts admitted in a guilty plea are conclusive admissions in subsequent civil litigation. Let me say that again. Facts admitted in a guilty plea, a criminal guilty plea, are conclusive admissions in any subsequent civil litigation. You can't change your answer then. And the individual who pled guilty is collaterally estoppel from denying those admitted facts as uncontroverted for the purposes of summary judgment. A person who pled guilty was collaterally estopped from denying his criminal acts that he acknowledged committing. He can't deny it. He can't deny it in civil court because he already said he did it in criminal court. With prejudice, Ninja. They can't even bring it up again. He can appeal it to the Superior Court. He's got 30 days to file an appeal. It'd be useless, but he can. Godlewski claims that Kelly falsely reported that he pleaded guilty to the corruption of minors and admitted to having a sexual relationship with a 15-year-old girl. Based upon the content of Godlewski's text messages, which served as the factual basis for the corruption of a minor charge set forth in the criminal information, and Godlewski's sworn plea to that specific crime in the court of law, both of the foregoing statements made by Kelly in this article are true.
The audacity!
That's it. Case fucking closed. He claims that that Kelly falsely said he pleaded guilty to the corruption of minors and admitted to having a sexual relationship with a minor, with a 15-year-old girl. Based upon the previous cases, so based upon the content of his text messages, which he claims he disproved, he never did. He never even tried that. Which served as the basis for the charges set forth in the criminal case, and the fact that his sworn plea to that specific crime in a court of law, both statements. What statements? That he pled guilty to the corruption of a minor and had a sexual relationship with a 15-year-old girl. Both these statements made by Kelly in his article are true.
I was like a ninja.
Sorry, I had to hit you with a secret Eli Ninja headphone rape. They're true. As a result of Godlewski's guilty plea colloquy, inappropriate text messages, and contact with Bree, as set forth in the affidavit of probable cause, quoting the offending text messages, admitting and memorializing a sexual relationship with a 15-year-old minor, Godlewski is collaterally stopped from denying his participation in a sexual relationship with Bree in 2010. So basically what this is saying, estoppel and estop. So estoppel is basically, it's a principle that when you go to court that you can't deny something contrary to what is implied by previous action. You pled guilty to a case that involved sex with a girl while she was 15 years old. Legally, you cannot even claim that it's not true in court. Unless you can prove that you were drugged or fraud happened or that's not your signature or so you had, an imposter or a clone, you can't even say that. It's just accepted that you did. Yes, in the same civil case. When he goes to court with Bree, in the same way that he cannot claim he didn't have sex with her here, he can't claim he didn't have sex with her there. So when she goes to court, she needs to bring this with her. He's estopped or estoppel, and what that means is there's legal reasoning that you can't do this, right? You pled guilty to it in a criminal case. You can't come to the civil case and say, I didn't do that. No, just because I pled guilty to it, I didn't do it. Unless you can prove what it said earlier, fraud or that shit, and he hasn't. He admitted on the stand, actually, that it wasn't fraud, that he did plead to it, that he signed it, that he did it. Thus, Godlewski has failed to come forward with sufficient evidence creating a genuine issue of material fact concerning the claimed falsity of Kelly's statements, and that Godlewski pleaded guilty to corruption of minors and admitted to having a sexual relationship with a 15-year-old girl. Godlewski alternately alleges that Kelly made a false factual statement by indicating that Godlewski was selling rabbit holes by displaying an image of an unrealtor sign in the accompanied cartoon, thereby suggesting unreality on Godlewski's part and questioning his fitness as a realtor. Kelly testified that he viewed Godlewski's QAnon videos before he authored an opinion column about Godlewski. Kelly stated that his articles did not raise an inference that Mr. Godlewski is not fit to be a realtor because of his QAnon activities, but agreed that he utilized a rabbit hole figuratively to reference the QAnon movement and the rabbit holes people go down believing all this nonsensical stuff. Kelly considers the illustration prepared by the Scranton Times' John Cole depicting a rabbit hole and unrealtor sign to be a very clever parody on Godlewski's job as a realtor and what he was doing in broadcasting baseless QAnon conspiracies. Obviously, so that's a joke. You can't take a cartoon that says unrealtor and be like, oh, this is obviously a statement of fact. It's a cartoon, you fucking idiot. It is noteworthy that the phrase rabbit hole has been used in other court proceedings, illegal proceedings described in the effect of QAnon movement and on its adherents. See all these cases. Flynn v. Cable News Network, quoting testimony that many people simply get sucked into the rabbit hole of QAnon and are victims. Peyton Yon, conspiracy theory belief in the case for abolishing the insane delusional doctrine. Describing a story that overtook American journalism. A person with warm, loving relationship falls through their phone screen and down a rabbit hole, emerging as a ghost of their former self and an ardent believer in QAnon. Madeline M. Cook, bringing down big data, a call for federal data privacy legislation, September 2022, stating that QAnon's extremist ideology is designed to send people down rabbit holes, radicalizing them according to their own personality type, and that the hysteria that compounds as people crawl deeper down these rabbit holes could be more likely to eventually lead to their thinking that Hillary Clinton needs children. This is just a bunch of cases saying, hey, every time people are talking about QAnon in court, they're saying rabbit holes. This is an accepted term, right? Reporting that QAnon membership has increased significantly as a product of the pandemic because of added time at home to fall down QAnon rabbit holes, where more people are becoming entrapped in the deep cultic side of this extremist belief. Other legal journals have noted similarly noted the detachment from reality of QAnon's conspiracy theories. See Anti-Free Speech Acts of the First Amendment of summer 2022, adding to the increasing destabilization of a shared fact-based reality is the growing normalization of QAnon, a cult-like web phenomenon that features intensely paranoid, conspiracy-driven discourse. So not only is rabbit holes used quite a bit when talking about QAnon in court, but so is a disconnect or a separate reality or unreality. Hence, Kelly and the Scranton Times are not alone in using the word unreal and the phrase rabbit holes in describing QAnon movements and activities. Prior to the publication of the article at issue, Godlewski had publicly broadcast on social media that United Airlines Flight 93 never crashed in Somerset County on September 11, 2001, that Stephen Paddock did not shoot and kill 60 people and wound another 413 individuals in a mass shooting at the Mandalay Bay Hotel in Las Vegas, that former President Donald Trump had authorized and presided over the executions of President Biden, Hillary Clinton, and other public figures by military tribunals, and that the late President George H.W. Bush was also executed by a military tribunal due to the Bush family's involvement with child sex trafficking, that various Democratic officials were molesting children and drinking their blood to ingest adrenochrome in the basement of a Washington pizzeria, and other equally absurd representations. Such public pronouncements reflect a declarant who is untethered from... Because Phil said this, he is untethered from reality. And Kelly has testified that he viewed those videos prior to preparing this article. So even the judge is like, well, he said you're not in reality, and that seems legit. Even when the summary judgment record is viewed in the light most favorable to Godlewski as the non-moving party, it demonstrates that the sells rabbit holes reference in the title of the unrealtor sign and the rabbit hole appearing in the cartoon illustration are more parody rather than actionable statements of fact. Another case affirming finding that parody cannot be reasonably understood as describing actual facts or events, stating that both Pennsylvania and federal courts recognize that speech which cannot reasonably be taken as stating actual facts is afforded protections as parody or satire under the First Amendment. Defamation is by its nature mutually exclusive of parody. You can't have defamation and parody, obviously. That's why you can do parody and satire. It's not made to be true. It's made to be a joke. By definition, defamation requires false statement of fact, but parody cannot constitute a false statement of fact. That's why it's parody. For the reasons set forth above, Godlewski's second allegation of false statement of fact is likewise devoid of merit. Godlewski's final claimed statements of fact concern Kelly's representation that Godlewski happily calls out the cadence of the QAnon movement and is a purveyor of poison, which Godlewski asserts conveys that he bears some responsibility for the criminal acts committed during the Capitol riot. Kelly testified that the words happily calls out the cadence constituted figurative language that referenced Godlewski's broadcast on January 6, 2021, when he said that Vice President Mike Pence had been arrested, which statements got Godlewski in the USA Today article. And Godlewski's rallying cry and the Democratic legislators should be arrested and got executed at top levels. As for the phrase purveyor of poison, Kelly indicates that he was referring to the lies and nonsense, disinformation, and misinformation that Godlewski was spreading on the internet, such as representing as true that the real Joe Biden has been executed and the guy who's in the White House is a body double in a studio out in Arizona, and that Godlewski had traveled in time and talked to Nikola Tesla. Of course, this is unreal. He traveled in time and talked to Nikola Tesla. That's your claim? We're not done yet, baby. The role of QAnon movement to its followers and its followers in the events at the Capitol on January 6th has been widely reported in legal literature. See Neil Fulton, What Comes Next. Many QAnon adherents were active at the Capitol on January 6th under the belief that they represented a long-promised storm within American society. See Defamation 2.0. These are some good books, by the way, if you want to read them, or articles, or whatever they are. They sound like they'd be good. What Comes Next by Washburn in winter of 2023. Defamation 2.0 by LA, maybe Review, winter of 2023. QAnon played a major role in the Capitol insurrection on January 6, 2021 by Brendan Williams. Divided We Fall, the concerted attack on U.S. democracy in spring of 2023. In the U.S. Capitol insurrection, the Air Force veteran killed riding reportedly avidly followed QAnon conspiracy theory, convinced that Trump was destined to vanquish a cabal of child abusers and Satan-worshipping Democrats, and believed January 6th would be the storm when QAnon mythology holds that Trump would capture and execute his opponents. Matthew J. Blaney wrote, posting in the metaphysical public square, defining social media user rights on the online platforms of government officials. This is published in 2022 and 2023, and it says, in fact, if QAnon conspiracy theorists have shown the nation anything, it is that the online communications have the ability to develop into national crisis, for example, by fostering a community where some of the followers removed their voices from social media and ascended on the Capitol building to riot on January 6th. Newland writes in 42 Child Legal Rights J at 125. It says, many cult-like, expansive, and violent actions to further their mission. QAnon follows this model as they expected and helped plan the January 6th insurrection. Joshua Schroeder, The Dark Side of Due Process, How to Use Irrelevant Talk to Speak Back to Bad Men, in 2022, says QAnon grew up under Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes' marketplace of ideology until it attempted to end American democracy on January 6, 2021, where QAnon followers equated a violent Trumpian coup d'etat with the First Amendment freedoms of speech and assembly. However, Kelly never said Godlewski was at the rally. Of course he didn't. In his article. To the contrary, Kelly's article expressly states that Godlewski told me he wasn't at the Capitol on January 6, but he showed up in USA Today's coverage of the riot. After Godlewski posted on Facebook that Vice President Mike Pence had been arrested. He was very clear about that. This is Phil grasping at all those straws that don't exist. Okay? By the way, if you like the show, you like the content we bring you, you like getting the scoop over here, go to coldbeer.fund, help support the show. You can go to buymeacoffee.coldbeer, but all my links are over on this website. You can click any of these links, and it'll open up somewhere for you to donate, like buymeacoffee.com/coldbeer. Support the show so we can keep it going. Back to reading. Once again, Godlewski has not identified sufficient evidence indicating that Kelly made... I'm not going to have a voice tomorrow. Indicating that Kelly made false factual statements tying Mr. Godlewski to the criminal insurrection of the Capitol on January 6. Kelly's references to Godlewski happily calling out the cadence of the QAnon movement is supported by the plethora of QAnon conspiracies broadcasted by Godlewski on social media and viewed by Kelly prior to authoring his article. The other description of Godlewski's purveyor of poison constitutes satirical commentary by Kelly based upon Godlewski's above-quoted QAnon broadcast, rather than an actionable false statement of facts. It says C. O'Donnell, And O'Donnell said, what the fuck? It's just a fly that landed on my head. Did you see me just kill a fly? Holy shit. It landed on my head. I felt it, grabbed it, threw it down, and smacked it. Got a fly. Rewind that shit. Play it back. O'Donnell says, describing constitutionally protected satire as a long-established artistic form that uses means such as ridicule, derision, burlesque, irony, parody, and caricature to censure the vices, follies, abuses, and shortcomings of individuals or society. Therefore, Kelly and the Scranton Times are entitled to summary judgment due to the absence of sufficient evidence in the record that Kelly or the Scranton Times made a false statement of fact regarding Godlewski. So all of the statements were bullshit. They were all true, including that Phil pled guilty to having sex with a minor. And Phil can't even legally go to court anywhere civilly and say that he didn't. He's precluded from that. Defamatory character of factual representation. In addition to establishing there's like this little gnat that keeps flying around. I thought that's what that was until I killed that fly. It's like this little like fruit gnat that keeps flying around. It's bugging the shit out of me. Either that or my fucking meth has got me like, it got the bugs coming out of my skin or something. In addition to establishing that Kelly of the Scranton Times made a false factual statement about him, Godlewski also bears the burden of proving the defamatory character of the statement. Whether a particular statement is capable of defamatory meaning is a question of law for the court to decide. A statement is defamatory if it tends to harm an individual's reputation so as to lower him or her in the estimation of the community or deter third persons from associating or dealing with him or her. However, it's not enough that the victim of the statements be embarrassed or annoyed. He must have suffered the kind of harm which has grievously fractured his standing in the community of respectable society. So it's not enough to be embarrassed or annoyed. It has to actually fuck you up some way in polite society, respectable society. In determining whether a statement is defamatory, the court must consider whether the challenged statement constitutes an opinion or an assertion of fact. A statement of fact can be verified as true or false, whereas an expression of opinion only conveys a subjective belief of the speaker. Expressions of opinion are not actionable, nor are statements constituting no more than rhetorical hyperbole, as Eli would say, hyperbole, or a vigorous epithet. A statement in the form of an opinion is actionable only if it may reasonably be understood to imply the existence of undisclosed defamatory facts justifying the opinion. However, a simple expression of opinion based on disclosed facts is not in itself sufficient for an actionable defamation. The summary judgment record reflects that Kelly is an op-ed columnist who wrote an opinion column on Godlewski. In that capacity, Kelly's believed it was his responsibility to inform and entertain by gathering facts from documents and people, and then decide what I think on those facts mean and share my opinion on them. As stated in Section 2B1 above, the only factual statements that Kelly made about Godlewski are true. The only factual statements that Chris Kelly said about Phil are true. The remainder of this article, February 14, 2021, is replete with Kelly's opinions regarding the QAnon movement, its impact on society, and Godlewski's acknowledged involvement with it. Godlewski has not alleged, let alone identified, evidence that Kelly based his various opinions in his op-ed on undisclosed defamatory facts. Besides the truthful factual statements addressed above, Kelly's article as a whole contains expressions of opinion based upon disclosed facts and arguably vigorous epithet and satirical commentary, as a result of which Godlewski's proffered evidence is insufficient as a matter of law to establish defamatory character of a communication in its compliance. So it was either opinions or fucking true. That's all that's in the article. Opinions or true. That's the only two things that existed there. Thank you for that clip. We'll watch it in a minute. Actual malice. Oh, let me tell you a story before we get actual malice. Last night, I printed, I'll show it to you. Hold on, here's one. These are fenders for my one wheel. This is just half of one. And typically it's twice this size because it's half of one and it goes all the way over. These are called shorty fenders. They just cover, like your foot just goes up against them so you don't get into the tire, but it's not really a fender, right? The tire's more exposed. And I think they look cool. So I was seeing if I could print some. I found some 3D printer files and printed some. And that's what the print that I was waiting on after yesterday's show to finish. And I was sitting here. So it finished printing, and I was like, I want to make sure it works, so I installed it. Then I was like, I wonder if it interferes with like a tire or throws rocks up or anything. So I wrote it. This is at 1:15 last night. I hopped on the one wheel and rode around my parking lot. I went out and around. There's like a parking lot behind me. I went down to that parking lot, and I was coming back, riding the one wheel at 1:15 in the morning. And for about a half a second, it went from pitch black dark to fucking daylight, followed by the two loudest fucking booms I have heard since I left the military. It rattled me. I felt it in my chest. And the reason I don't go to fireworks shows or stuff like that is when there's an explosion I can feel in my chest, my PTSD kicks into fucking overdrive. I freak. Like when it thumps your chest, that's it. That's it. Like I am in full fucking PTSD mode and we're getting to a secure area now. Like I freak the fuck out. I start doing shit and I don't even know why the fuck I'm doing it. So as soon as that happened, I come around the building as fast as I could, threw the one wheel in the Jeep, didn't even fucking lock the door, hopped in the fucking Jeep, took the fuck off, running red lights, doing like 100+ miles an hour on the interstate to get back home to my family and make sure they were okay. Freaked me the fuck out. I get back to the campground, hop in, run inside. Everybody's fine. Everybody's cool. It doesn't seem like anything's going on. But I was fucking like shaking, dude. So fucking scared. I try to calm myself down. I can't. I'm sitting there going back and forth. So I hop on social media to see what was it. Just did I have a fucking vision from God? Was it me? A meteor entered Earth's atmosphere last night and broke the sound barrier. And when it broke the sound barrier, they believe that it literally happened. Like it popped through the sound barrier. Like the epicenter of that is literally above my office. Like if you zoom in all the way on the map where they think it broke the sound barrier, like you can't tell the difference between that spot and the spot where my office, which doesn't zoom in very far, but literally over my office. They heard this from all of my town woke up and heard it. The nuclear facility here in town got picked up shit on their fucking seismic readers and shit. They freaked out, rolled out a full-blown security response. I didn't see the meteor. All I saw was the flash, but other people caught the meteor on their Ring camera. Like, I can show you a video of it. Other people caught the meteor on their Ring camera and shit. All I saw was the flash and the explosion. But I literally thought like we were under fucking attack. Like something had exploded here. And like all I could think about was like, I can't believe I'm at the fucking office instead of home with my family. Like I prepare for this all the time in my head or all the time when I freak out. And I can't believe I'm fucking here instead of with my family. So I went into fucking full goddamn panic mode. But yeah, they heard it in my town. They heard it towns over like 40, 50 miles away. It woke people up and shit. They heard it fucking everywhere. Multiple News Channel 11 viewers across News Channel 11 Tri-City saw a meteor passing over the area early Friday morning. It happened at 1:15 a.m. That's not the actual picture I wanted to show you guys. There was another picture that I shared, or another video that I shared, I think. Yeah, here. These are two videos of it that are decent, I guess. If I can make them bigger, yeah, I can. All right, so in this one, look up in this area in the top right. Like right up here. And you'll see it when it bursts into flame, so it's coming through the atmosphere. There you go. See it in the very top? I'll rewind it. Right there. It just entered the atmosphere, and that's it burning up. And now look how bright this security camera gets. It's daylight, right? It was daylight for like half a second. And then he's got one from his backyard. His backyard lights up even more. This is his backyard. You can't see the meteor, but look how bright it fucking gets. And then one of my buddies I went to school with, he was actually able to find, he's a weatherman and stuff now, but he was actually able to find a colored security camera. Here it is going across the interstate. We'll finish the fill video. Just give me a second. Look at it across the interstate. And those flashes were the booms. Those flashes were the booms. But here's what a color... This is a screenshot from a color security camera. Tell me that isn't daytime. This is at 1:15 in the fucking morning. It's hard to tell in a black and white one because everything just gets brighter. This is a color security camera. That's daytime. And this whole apartment complex is lit up like it's daytime. It scared the fuck out of me. We have like a nuclear facility here, but even if it wasn't like an attack, if something just fucking blew up on the other side of town, a fucking train car with something explosive or chemicals or something and it blew up, all I knew is I had to get back the fuck home. That's all I knew. I got to get home. And I got there in a hurry. I'm glad the police weren't fucking chasing me because I couldn't have explained it to them. I'd just be like, what the fuck? Like, it was bad. I couldn't believe how loud it is. That's the same reason I don't do fireworks shows and shit. But that thump in my chest, when it goes from just like a bang, like, something fell, those scare me too. But when I get that in my chest, all I fucking think about is fucking mortar rounds and IEDs and the time that we got stuck in that goddamn traffic circle and they're trying to fucking hit me with mortars and I couldn't do it. Couldn't handle it. I was out of there. Wild, dude. Fucking wild. Anyway, so we get back to the thing now. A meteor across my county last night, I guess. Actual malice. Godlewski must not only demonstrate that Kelly and the Scranton Times published a 1 false and 2 defamatory statement about him, but he must further prove that they did so 3 with actual malice. Actual malice is a false standard predicated on the need to protect the public discourse under the First Amendment from the chill that may be fostered by less vigilant limitations on defamation actions brought by public officials or figures. So we don't want to chill First Amendment. The First Amendment should always be there, and you should have the right to talk about whatever you want. One way that you could chill or slow down people talking about First Amendment stuff is if people who have public figures who obviously have money, attention, power, that's why they're public figures, sue anybody that talk about them, right? Whether it's true or not, they sue about it. So the reason public figures have to do actual malice is because they could just sue people left and right and shut them up because they have more money than you, more power than you, right? More advantages than you. They could just fucking use you. So we don't want to do that. So we have an actual malice standard on public figures. It requires the plaintiff to prove by clear and convincing evidence that the publisher of the false and defamatory statement either knew that the factual statement was false or recklessly disregarded whether it was true or false. The requirement that the plaintiff be able to show actual malice by clear and convincing evidence is initially a matter of law. And the question to whether the evidence in the record in a defamation case is sufficient to support a finding of actual malice is a question of law. The evidentiary metric of clear and convincing evidence is the highest standard of proof in civil claims. So when we hear the word clear and convincing, we just think that means, very good proof. But it's actually there's different standards of proof in a civil case. Clear and convincing evidence is the highest standard. So this is not like a small thing. In defamation cases, the clear and convincing evidence standard requires evidence that is so clear, so direct, so weighty, and so convincing as to enable the fact finder to come to a clear conviction without any hesitation of the truth of the precise facts in issue. So there has to be a piece of evidence that is so clear and convincing that as soon as the judge or jury sees it, they know that they know the truth of this fact without even a hesitation. They don't have to think it over. They don't have to be like, well, what if it was me? Or think about, well, this versus this. It has to be so good that as soon as they see it, they know that that's what it is. And there's no way Phil could have proved that. He didn't try, but there's no way he could have if he would have tried. The rule requiring judges to decide as a matter of law whether the evidence is sufficient to support finding of actual malice is premised upon the unique character of interest protected by the actual malice standard, and recognizes that judges, as expositors of the Constitution, must independently decide whether the evidence in the record is sufficient to cross the constitutional threshold that bars the entry of any judgment that is not supported by clear and convincing proof of actual malice. Yes, thank you. Coldbeer.fund if you want to support the show. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Yeah, you can use any of the links on coldbeer.fund. Buy me a coffee. There's a PayPal link that's like private if you don't want shit to pop up. You can donate bits, whatever. You're good. Proof of actual malice calls a defendant's state of mind into question. The actual malice requirement is not met through a showing of ill will or malice in the ordinary sense of the term, or the failure to investigate even when a reasonable, prudent person would have done so. The difficulty in meeting the burden to establish actual malice is demonstrated in St. Amant v. Thompson, where the Supreme Court specified that this evidentiary burden requires more than consideration of whether a reasonable person would have published a statement without further investigation. Rather, it requires so you can't say, a normal person wouldn't have published this, but you did. Instead, it actually has to go beyond that, and it requires a plaintiff to present evidence sufficient to permit the conclusion that the defendant, in fact, entertained serious doubts as to the truth of his publication. You will very rarely catch a journalist on this. I know everybody likes to talk about mainstream media, this, that, the other, whatever. You'll very rarely catch a journalist that had serious doubts as to whether their story was even fucking true, and they're like, publish it anyways. Who cares? Who cares? We don't just publish it. It's just not going to happen. At the truth of his publication. Under the actual malice burden, sorry, I had to close something. Under the actual malice standard, the burden of proof imposed is substantial as the actual malice standard go so far as to forbid imposition of liability, even in those instances where the defendant negligently publishes false defamatory statements about a public figure or public official. So even if they can prove that you negligently published false defamatory statements about a public figure, that's still not enough to prove actual malice by itself. That you're on the right track, but that's not enough by itself. Malice, in the context of a defamation, requires a showing that the defendant must have made the false publication with a high degree of awareness of a probable falsity, or must have entertained serious doubts of the truth of his publication. The fact that the defendant could have employed a higher degree of journalistic responsibility does not constitute actual malice. Hence, the actual malice standards is rigorous, if not impossible. Even the court says it's super rigorous. It may even be impossible burden to meet in most circumstances. It may be impossible to meet in most circumstances. Feels like I got this. The only evidence submitted by Godlewski in support of his actual malice claim consists of the deposition transcripts of Kelly and the Scranton Times executive editor, Holeva. Now, this is where we get into some weird shit. Did Holeva flip? And that's why they dropped him from the case. Listen very closely. This is the executive editor, Larry Holeva. It says, Kelly testified in preparing the article, he reviewed the Times Tribune archives. I shouldn't say did he flip. I don't think he flipped. I think Phil's lawyers thought there's no way we can go after him. He's just the editor, right? We need to go after the company and Chris. And they thought that they could kind of circle him around. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Anonymous bought you 5 6-packs. I appreciate that. I shouldn't have said flipped. I don't think he like went to work for Phil. I think that Phil's lawyers decided the only way we're going to get anywhere close to this being a case is if we drop him and we just ask him enough questions in enough ways to where it makes it look like Chris Kelly didn't do his job. I think that's a better statement. I shouldn't have said flipped. I don't think he's working for Phil. I don't think he wanted to help Phil because people will run with that. I think instead they thought, hey, we'll drop this one guy, Larry Holeva, and then we can ask him questions in just the right way, and when he answers them, we can be like, aha, Chris Kelly didn't do his job. Kelly testified that in preparing the article, he reviewed the Times Tribune archives, including early articles about Godlewski authored by Jeremy Burton and Dennis O'Malley, legal documents, court documents, the criminal affidavit, and his guilty plea colloquy. He also spoke to some other people to back up some information I found. In those materials, one of whom was Sierra O'Malley, who stated all the stuff in the column was true regarding Godlewski's relationship with his victim and how he got her not to testify against him. That's, again, the suicide, right? Another anonymous source for Kelly in gathering information to reinforce Kelly's belief that Godlewski's plea to corruption of minors was based on his guilt to sex offenses was someone who was in law enforcement process involving the criminal charges against Godlewski. So somebody who worked on the case back then. He's unnamed, doesn't want to be named, but he also talked to somebody on the case back then. The substance of Holeva's testimony. This is weird here. Now listen. The substance of Holeva's testimony is somewhat difficult to decipher due to the extensive redactions in his deposition transcript that is attached to Godlewski's brief. So Phil attached Holeva's testimony but redacted a lot of it. For example, Holeva's 14-line response to the question, can you describe to me the process of spot checking facts? And the 14 lines reflecting his answer to the ensuing question, what happens next, have been redacted in their entirety. In their entirety are redacted. Similarly, Holeva's admission that he would have expected Mr. Kelly to review the criminal complaint prior to writing the February 14, 2021 column is preceded by 67 lines of redactions and followed by another 25 lines of redactions. So Phil's lawyers redacted this. The question was, or his statement was, I would have expected Kelly to review the criminal complaint prior to writing his article. Before that line comes out, there's 67 lines of redactions, and after that is 25 lines of redactions. What the fuck for? I don't know if this is something Phil's lawyers did or what. Moreover, 26 lines of the 34 lines of questions and answers are redacted immediately prior to the inquiry. Have you told me all the sources of information you would expect a journalist to investigate prior to writing the column about Mr. Godlewski? Now listen, the judge says, no reason has been offered in the party submissions for the sweeping redactions in Holeva's deposition transcript. So I don't know if it was objections or something. I don't know what the fuck this is. Why so much of it was redacted. Holeva was questioned concerning his sources of information a journalist would have ethical obligation to pursue and identified investigative files, investigative work, investigative insight, investigative sourcing, and maybe interviews with people, witness to literature, documentation, whether that be video or written word, and information you would derive from interviews. He indicated that a journalist would be expected to conduct the same research on factual matters regardless of whether those facts appear in an opinion story or a news article. So you do the same due diligence whether you're writing an opinion piece or a regular news article, but further noted that the columnist had latitude in an opinion piece. Of course, there's more room to express your opinion in an opinion piece than there is in a regular news story. To the extent that Holeva's testimony can be construed as suggesting that Kelly should have exercised greater journalistic responsibility, it is insufficient to establish actual malice. So no matter what Kelly said, no matter what Holeva said, even when you redacted, I think Phil's lawyers they just took a Sharpie and redacted everything except what they wanted the judge to see in their brief. This wasn't the actual transcript. This is the transcript they submitted with their brief. I think instead of cutting out what he said and typing it up in a brief, they just marked out all the stuff that supported Chris Kelly. I don't know. Anyways, even everything he said, if taken at face value and is true, it still doesn't prove actual malice. Again, actual malice is that he knew it was false or he seriously doubted whether it was true or false when he broadcast. And Larry Holeva can't tell unless Kelly went to him and said, I don't know if this is true or not, but I really fucking hate this guy. He's screwed. He's screwed. Kelly testified that the article was designed to note the obvious irony in a guy being a leader in the QAnon movement, which is all about saving the children from pedophiles, having been a pedophile himself. The article was made to note the irony, the obvious irony in a guy being a leader in the QAnon movement, which is all about saving the children from pedophiles, having been a pedophile himself. No, he's actually got the same case that's representing, or the same fucking lawyer that's representing, that is representing Trump out in California. Right? Isn't that what we found out the other day? Same lawyers representing Trump. He planned that. That's an op. That's an op, boys. It's an op. As reflected in Godlewski 1. Even when the summary judgment record is examined in a light most favorable to Godlewski, again, Phil's the non-moving party, so he gets the benefit of the doubt everywhere. Even when giving him the greatest benefit of the doubt, it lacks clear and convincing evidence that Kelly and the Scranton Times either knew that the factual statements pertaining to Godlewski in the article were false, or that Kelly or the Scranton Times had a high degree of awareness of their probable falsity, or entertained serious doubts as to the truth of the publication. It is incumbent upon Godlewski to produce sufficient evidence that Kelly or the Scranton Times recklessly disregarded the truth or falsity of any factual statements in the article. And as stated in Section 1 above, Judge Menorah held earlier this year that Godlewski was not entitled to financial wealth discovery since he failed to identify facts or evidence establishing prima facie case of recklessness by Kelly and the Scranton Times. We agree with Judge Menorah's conclusion in that regard and find that the Kelly and the Scranton Times are also entitled to summary judgment based upon Godlewski's failure to produce sufficient evidence of actual malice as part of the Kelly, as on the part of Kelly or the Scranton Times. No actual malice. I told you there's no way he would prove that. I've been pretty accurate in this case so far. Godlewski has advanced separate claim for false light, invasion of privacy. A person who gives the publicity to a matter concerning another that places the other before the public in a false light is liable. False light, invasion of privacy. If A, the false light would be highly offensive to a reasonable person, B, the defendant had knowledge or acted in reckless disregard as the falsity of the publicized matter, and the false light in which the other would be placed. The tort of false light invasion of privacy offers redress, not merely for the publication of matters that are provably false, but also for those that, although true, are selectively publicized in a manner creating false impression. As with defamation, the elements of the claim for false light include knowledge of or reckless disregard for the falsity of the publication. For the same reason that Godlewski has failed to establish that Kelly or the Scranton Times knew of the falsity of their published statements or recklessly disregarded their truth or falsity in support of his defamation claim, he is unable to prove the same center element of his false light, invasion of privacy claim. So basically, because he can't prove actual malice or disregard for the truth up there, he can't prove it down here. This one's also thrown out. Accordingly, Kelly and the Scranton Times are entitled to summary judgment with respect to Godlewski's cause of action for false light, invasion of privacy. An appropriate order follows. That's right. An appropriate order follows. And I hope you're ready for it. How long, chat? How long have we waited for this appropriate order? It's been a long time coming. It's been a very, very long time coming, but here it is. Phil Godlewski plaintiff versus Chris Kelly, the Scranton Times LP, Larry Holeva, he's dropped now, in the Court of Common Pleas of Lackawanna County, number 2021. This is a celebration, guys. Let me know in the chat how fucking happy you are. We've waited and waited and waited and waited for somebody to put this dumb motherfucker back in his place. Number 2021 CV 2195. Order. And now, this 30th day of August 2024, upon consideration of the Scranton Times motion for summary judgment, the exhibits and memoranda of law submitted by the parties, and the oral arguments of both counsel on August 19th, 2024. It's kind of fitting that's Mariah's birthday, too. That's when they had the oral arguments that really sunk this boat. And based upon the reasoning set forth in the foregoing memorandum, it is hereby ordered and decreed that the Scranton Times motion for summary judgment is granted.
My God, are you still talking?
And the clerk of judicial records is directed to enter judgment in favor of defendants Chris Kelly and the Scranton Times LP and against Philip Godlewski in the above captioned matter. Now, they asked for summary judgment with prejudice. What does with prejudice mean? That he cannot bring this case again. That he cannot bring this case again. That's what they asked for. That's what it was approved in whole. This is a dismissal with prejudice. He cannot bring this case again. What can he do? He has 30 days from the day of this ruling to appeal it to the Superior Court and take it up another level. Do I think he will? He might just to placate his audience and be like, oh, it's going to be like another 9 months or a year or something now, but this is what I wanted. That'd be a huge waste of money, and he has zero. If he does, I think his lawyers should be held for like frivolous lawsuits because he has zero grounds. He didn't prove a single fucking tenet of the case. He didn't try to prove it. He didn't do anything. He just like, give me to a jury, bro. He didn't prove anything. He didn't bring anything. He didn't do anything. They could barely get him to show the fucking documents when he's there. I hope if he does, they embarrass him even more. But there are literally no grounds for an appeal whatsoever. So I don't even think it'll be fucking, I don't know. I don't even think they'll hear it. I don't think anybody will fucking hear it. Oh no, Phil is right. This is Phil Godlewski failing fantastically in front of his family that funded his frivolous lawsuit. And boy, have we been waiting a long fucking time. Tell it to him, Phil.
What's up, guys? So sorry about the cancellations. I came down with something. I've had a fever for
losing a case. Is that what you came down with?
I felt better. I got through the night. I didn't think I had anything, but I still am not good. I'm actually going to the doctor right now. I really don't think I'm going to make a live tonight. Even if I were to try to do it, I don't think I'm going to be able to last. I haven't been doing anything other than laying down for the last 72 hours. So
he seems happy.
I'm heading to the doctor now to see what the heck is going on with me. I gotta rest more, I think, before I do anything in terms of live streaming, because obviously it's not the most important thing right now. I know it's important for you guys, but if I continue to overexert myself, it's just going to make everything much worse. So I got all the remedies you guys have been sending me, and I've literally tried everything, and not much is working. So I'm going to go see if there's something else wrong.
All that medical shit, them patches you sell, and you're feeling like shit, dude. You sell enough shit, you should never be sick.
I'll keep you guys posted, but it's highly unlikely that I'm going to be able to go live again tonight. There's a chance that I may if I start feeling better, but I don't go to the doctor. You guys know that about me, but getting a little bit nervous because I don't have symptoms. I have a fever. And obviously with a fever it becomes,
Sounds like hepatitis.
you know,
Has he got the heavies?
and very lethargic, and that's how I feel. But I don't have a cough. I don't have congestion. I don't have much else. I have no appetite, but that I think comes with a fever too. So I'm going to see what they say, and we'll kind of play it by ear for tonight. But I really, as of right now, I'm 80% certain that I'm not going to be able to do a show tonight. So
Hop in the Ferrari and take it to urgent care.
develop here the rest of the day, but just want to let you guys know so you weren't waiting on me or anything like that. Love you guys.
There you go. Phil Godlewski, a little beat up. He leaves the post. I was ruled against the Scranton Times lawsuit for the motion of summary judgment. This means that the judge, a very far left Democrat, dismissed the case before even allowing it to be heard by a jury. If you don't meet the tenets of a case, you don't get to be heard by a jury. Fucking retard. You didn't meet that standard. The decision now gets appealed to the Superior Court, which is exactly where I wanted it all along. Also, no love tonight, live tonight. I just don't have the energy. Back tomorrow, 100%. Thank you guys for joining us. It's 1 a.m. here. This is The Scoop on Phil Godlewski. If you enjoyed the show, consider supporting us at coldbeer.fun. That's how we pay the bills, keep the show going. Nobody else has it, but I do. Thank you guys for joining us. Love you. See you. Bye. Have a good night. God, I'm so happy this is over with. Godlewski can't win, bro.
This douchebag happens to see this particular show, you don't have the forking balls to call out the people on this planet by name and tell them exactly who they are and tell them the rest of the world who they are. You don't have the forking balls. You don't have the balls.
Okay, Scott. Here we go. I think I started some shit. Listen off, it's about to get lit. Get the place in the best, you know that stage is set. You better buckle up, cause you ain't seen none yet. Here we go, I think I started some shit. Piss 'em off, it's about to get lit. Get the place in the best, you know that stage is set. You better buckle up, cause you ain't seen none yet. And they say that I'm a lunatic. Well listen, bitch, I came equipped with a quick wit and a 6th sense for the stupid shit. Where my true believer? Y'all need Jesus. Praise the Lord, and to the extreme. All these false fucking prophets who profit off of gossip. Worshipping drums, cocking, begging for a throat deposit. Swinging fucking meat hammers like Thor in a thong. He's strapped to the shaft, beating his chest like he's King Kong. Starving for attention, I'ma make your gut burst. I'll be your huckleberry, I can quench that thirst. Baby eating lizard people, alien sex. What's next? Trump in a dress, fucking Flynn on his desk. A retard in a vest, climbing up 5G towers. Cause you told him if he did, he'd get fucking superpowers. Here we go, I think I started some shit. Piss 'em off, it's about to get lit. Get the place in the best, you know that stage is set. You better buckle up, cause you ain't seen none yet. Here we go, I think I started some shit. Piss 'em off, it's about to get lit. Get the place in the best, you know that stage is set. You better buckle up, cause you ain't seen none yet. I used to find clues too when I was high on shrooms. I found myself a tunnel that led to Jason Q's bedroom. Open his closet, I found some of his meat rockets. I strapped him to my shoes and then I flew through the roof. I found myself in orbit strapped to an F-16. High on amphetamine, with Trump in between. Put on a light coat of baby oil and saluted the troops. He tapped me on the shoulder and said, "This is gonna be it." Whoa, wait. Stop. What? I'll get my files. Wait, what are you doing? Stop. Hold on. Fucking stop. Dude, come on. Seriously. My mom's an alcoholic. Oh, give me a... Oh, my God. Damn it. Here we go. I think I started some shit. Piss 'em off. It's about to get lit. Get the place in the best. You know that stage is set. You better buckle up, cause you ain't seen...
Have a good night, everybody.
Here we go. I think I started some shit.
Wonder how much money he spent doing this shit. Should have sent it to me. I'd have told you it was bullshit.
Buckle up, cause you ain't seen none yet.
See you guys.
Round 3. Down goes Nino.
Oh, hey, Shaq.
Got him backed up on the ropes, trying to ram it down his...
Thank you for the happy birthday wish. Appreciate it.
He was doing so well. It's all over. Hands on his shoulders, they ringing his bell. You got Frog News Network, dude. No damn reason.